Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we talk to former principal hospitality consultant turned nature portal guide to the Lemurian crystal city of Telos, which he says is beneath the Mount Shasta portal. So with that, Mr. Lowell Johnson, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
I have never been introduced like that yet. And at first, as I was listening to this, I'm not thinking of the YouTube version, the video version. All of a sudden, your voice just made me, it was resonant of radio. And so now I'm going to listen to the rest of this radio broadcast. And so now I have a greater appreciation for audio podcasts.
yes. Well, the Merkaba Chakras podcast, the viewership that you see on the YouTube channel, that's one of 5 or so other video sharing platforms, and then 70 different audio podcast directories. And most of the listeners are in Russia, India, and in Asia. And in those areas, streaming internet is very expensive. They don't have high, fast bandwidth yet. And so to listen to these podcasts, it's cheaper and easier to listen to the audio version. And
Wow.
it's something to most people who are listening, they didn't know. And the other thing is, some of these countries have a lot of censorship with the internet, and so they can censor the video streaming platforms and some of the major ones, but the smaller podcast directories completely slide by. So,
well, let's see what they do with this content, shall we?
Wow, Asia loves Lemuria. We completely have it all over our folklore. So before we dig into your work about the beautiful city of Telos and your account of it, can you tell us your story for how you even got into this work? Because you recently were in hospitality.
Yeah, 40 years. I ran hotels and casinos. I was a non-gaming expert. That was my thing. I like to flip hotels. I like to make them better than I found them. And I had a knack for it. Now, I had really no frame of reference, and my spiritual journey had not kicked in such a way that I saw myself as a service to others being. And that's how I chose to play it out. I see things from a different perspective now. Honestly, it wasn't that I didn't have a curiosity in something bigger than myself. And I made my way through church the way that you're nurtured through it, had my experiences with it in a couple of different scenarios. So I had a frame of references. And in the end, as much effort as I put into it, and I assure you, I've read every line of the Bible. I'm a technology guy. And when we got to databasing there, I was part of a program that did one of those 365-year programs for your Bible. Yeah, we did the programming in the back. So I went through it every day, saw the line I was supposed to see. At the end of the 365 days, I had read every word of the Bible. Well, that was wonderful. I could say I read it all. Did I understand any of it? No, because when you read the line at a time, it's, what context? So I had that training. In the end, it didn't really satisfy the questions I had. If you're telling me that there's a God inside of me, and somehow my intuition that I really don't understand how to pay attention to yet either is telling me the same thing. So without really understanding, I'm searching for this. I'm searching for it. I chase jobs and titles and responsibilities and families and like everybody else. And really the point at which the universe got my attention, I had a TIA. It's a mini stroke. So late 2015, first weekend in December, I had a procedure to correct that. My surgeon had informed me that there was going to be about a 30-day period of recovery. And of the things that he suggested for therapy was meditation. Well, actually, I thought, what a wonderful time to try it. Wasn't it? I hadn't thought about it before, but I just couldn't find that, however you say it, you can quiet your mind. I couldn't find that space. Well, as I did more research on it, tried every app I could find, every internet reference to it, the same kind of word kept popping up, mantra, mantra, mantra. Didn't know where you could get one, where you could buy one. I didn't know anything about that. And when the end of January came around, so it hadn't been that long since I really started to kick in and do my due diligence, I'd watched The Secret for the third time. Had seen it twice before, and in it there are references to transcendental meditation that I must have heard but didn't pay attention to then. Well, I decided to do some research. Now, there's not a trainer on every corner because they're all trained consistently in the same way that the Maharishi originally was trained. Quite effective and very simple. And if it is what it says it is, I'd like to try it. So when I started to research where you could find trainers, right, they're all over the world, but who knew that there would be one that's like a mile away from where I live? So is there some things that are lining up here? Yeah, probably. Within 2 or 3 days of just getting to those spaces, and it was going to take training and some time to get there regularly. Wow. Changes in your physicality changed right away. Day 3, I had noticed that there was a sensation I used to carry here. And I always thought it was indigestion that came and went. After the 3rd day of meditation, it went away. And it took me a few more days to notice that it was gone. When I realized that's stress I've been carrying around, and it flares up and it goes away when you get triggered. Well, you can find a meditative state where none of that touches you. And so after a week of this practice, and it kind of becomes a 20-minute regimen, I wish I had the time to do it twice a day, because you do benefit in the middle of the day when you recharge your batteries if you're really going at it. But I start my day out that way every day, and the day is set for you. Holy cow. I can regularly now find that stage where you're at, the field of probabilities. Yeah, there. That's what everybody wants to accomplish. It wasn't easy, because during that process, you've got to find a way to turn out all the other white noise. And that's not easy given this environment around us. But once I had that mastered, then I was on to the next level. Because once I could quiet myself, now the universe is going to show me what it's going to show me.
Right. Well, let me ask you about, because you mentioned your church background, and then, your 9 to 5, climb the corporate ladder background. And obviously we have to make an income in order to provide and all that. So nothing against that. But one of the things that I think of is, why is there a stigma against work-life balance between a metaphysical spiritual interest and a professional work, whereas there is no stigma for someone who has an active church life and a professional life? So why it seems like there's a contradiction when you go into metaphysics as compared to being open about your church life activity and your work?
Here's my response. I'd seen this word, and it really applies. We severed ourselves from that part. There's 3 parts of us. There's mind, body, spirit. We ignore spirit. We let our egos drive now, and so we ignore that intuition and have for a long time. But in there is where all of our magic lies. And if we just pay attention to that, man, the universe opens up in ways when you put an intent out there, it's their responsibility in their mind to come back and blow you away with the response. They want to respond with what you put out there in abundance.
Yes. So maybe if more professionals also included and was open about the metaphysical interests, like you and I and others on the Merkaba Chakras podcast, because many of them own companies, many of them write books, et cetera, et cetera. They do many different things as well. Maybe if we just stop thinking there's a stigma, then that there won't be a stigma. We just make it as a common thing. Oh, you're really active in your church. Oh, you're really active in in Buddhism. Oh, you're really active in your metaphysical pursuits. It's just a side hobby that people are really interested in. But the stigma I notice is going away, but there still is a little bit of a stigma. So if people were more open and instead of being a closet metaphysical person, it will be much more easily accepted. Okay, so your hospitality and tourism background comes in handy for future nature portals and travels into Telos and other 5D Lemurian or Atlantean inner cities. So I wanted to ask you this. I have clients that come in for quantum hypnosis and for 5D healing, energy healing and guidance from source and their spirit guides to develop energy healing retreats, nature portal tours, and a variety of metaphysical ecotourism. So as this industry evolves, what insights can you offer these early young entrepreneurs trying to bring metaphysical ecotourism to the stage? What guidance do you have for them?
You have to offer somebody authenticity. You can't send them out with a guide who's learned it in a book. That's not what any of us are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I have been now in this community for a few years and around other people that have had extraordinary experiences, some that were abductees 20 years ago and have been talking about their experiences ever since. And as interesting as that is, I want to get next to the people that are having these experiences right now. Those are the ones I want to hear. I don't want to hear someone else telling their story. I want to hear that guy because something's going on that I feel and I need a freaking touchstone. So it was, my case was no different. You know, I went from the life you described already to this. How? Because it just grabs you and you have no choice but to just follow your intuition. And when you do, you get to straddle dimensions. You put it simply, that's what happens.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the interdimensional UFO images that you took of before you were into Telos. So I'm gonna share my screen. What is it that we're looking at here? Because there's a picture of a man, it looks like you, and then there's a bunch of speckles of rainbow lights behind you. What is that?
Yeah, there's a setup to you understanding what this picture represents.
Okay.
Earlier this day, I had met, and I'm abbreviating the story quite a bit because we'll be here all evening telling it all. I met a hybrid. And for those of you that really know what a hybrid is, then you know what I'm talking about. And for those of you that don't, and then you know what you need to educate yourself on. But these entities are real.
So like a hybrid human and alien, or a hybrid what?
I don't call it alien. Just that's a label that just it sends a vibration that's not accurate. Yes, half human and half light person is really the better way to take a look at this. And when you understand what's unfolding with me and who I'm connected with, now you'll understand the link between this hybrid person and them and us.
Okay.
So I had met her for the first time that day. I didn't know who she was before then. She had heard about me, and she had a connection to the people I was visiting because they had had history healing for years. And as the afternoon went on, she got up and was over by an 8-foot plant. And I didn't know what she was doing. She was taking some pictures. And after she had taken a few, she said, "Hey, Lowell, come on over here." And so she asked me to stand behind it, put your arms around it. She asked me to chant some ilioms, and I didn't know what they were. So I did until I felt silly. And then I stopped and I turned around, and that was it. Well, she was done doing whatever she was doing. So immediately after that took place, we went inside the house, to which she was going to show me the pictures that she took. These dimensional pictures are me and light beings.
Okay. So, do you know how? So this tour guide or this person that took these pictures with you and went on this excursion with you. She's a hybrid of a light being and a human, and so
she spent her life helping clear negative energies all over the planet.
Okay.
It still does that to this day.
Okay. And who is the light being? Is it a physical person? Who can you describe this light being that is her, was it half parent?
Did
she tell you that?
I know exactly the story behind it. Okay. And it has more to do with what our government knew way back in the late 40s and early 50s, what exotic materials they had access to, what technologies they had that none of us knew about back then. But scientists had somehow gotten their hands on alien DNA.
Okay.
In whatever form they got it, I can't speak to that, but here's how it happened. Mm-hmm. They were certainly aware of these beings that they were seeing and coming in contact with, had some, abilities that they did not. And they wanted to understand what they were and how, perhaps for military purposes, of course, how to leverage that. So however they had extracted or got their hands on this DNA, mm-hmm. They had looked for soldiers back then that wanted to volunteer for a program. Her father was one of those. Her mother knew nothing about it until Kumu got to be about the age of 5. And then she was demonstrating his abilities that, hey, not everybody can do that. And they just knowingly, she had connections to things beyond this realm. Mm-hmm. So she was put into a program with many other kids that came from, elsewhere, similar circumstances. And so, they're about to be studied for a while. Now, she does not work for the government, although she was observed for a long time. Mm-hmm. She's quite independent. And that's one of the reasons why she doesn't want the spotlight. She's not interested in it. She knows what she's here to do. And when we got through the things that we needed to, so I understood who she was and what my role was, she looked at me kind of at the end and she said, I'm glad there's someone else to help do the work.
Nice. Okay. So your tour guide in this is a hybrid light being, hybrid human and light being. And the light being
her family is Hawaiian. They have had a plantation there for 20, I don't know how many generations. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And so it's through some kind of DNA manipulation that she got the DNA from the light being. Okay.
She was born into that. Yes.
Okay. So let's go to the next picture. So the next picture we see is what are we looking at?
Yeah, that was actually there was a series of 3 or 4 pictures she had taken before I stood behind. This mm-hmm. is one of those. So you can clearly see the light being in the plant. Mm-hmm. There's a few more that just show some different perspectives of those. I don't know how many of them you got. I don't know that I sent them all. But
okay.
These came up first. And then when it got to the picture of me, when you look really closely at it, there was contact that was taking place. You could see this being going in my third eye and coming out and going down like the back of my chakras.
Okay,
so you could feel that sensation.
Okay, so this picture, and you guys, if you want to see the pictures, go to the video description and watch the video interview. But this picture, it's a plant and it has a bunch of, it's almost looking like raining rays of rainbows. But in this, there's a cluster of light right here in the center. And then I'm not sure what this is, but it kind of looks like a head. And there's eyes.
Yes,
and cheeks and mouth, and there's like an ear, and it looks like a cone head.
You just need to get used to, who gets to study this phenomenon? This is the other reason why people need to be able to see it. So when I say light beings, here is what it is.
Right. So it maybe I'm seeing something, or maybe I'm interpreting, but this really does look like a cone head with ears and eyes and nose and cheek and mouth and neck here and a collar and
take into account our third dimensional beings want to put it in terms that we understand,
right?
And these guys can take whatever form they wish. These are 6 dimensional light beings. So there, the next dimension, fifth dimension, we're done with physical bodies. Although we won't be carbon-based in the next round here, we're crystalline. But after that, we no longer cave form. That's our form. And we can slip in and out of that anytime we wish.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go. Now, to be in the frequency to even capture some of these pictures says a lot about the person, because not everybody is able to capture unique images that are interdimensional.
That is a very important point that you make right there, because she's holding the same kind of iPhone that all the rest of us use. And yet, look what she captures dimensionally.
So here is a picture of you. This is over at Mount Shasta before you go into
No. This is at the same compound.
Oh,
this
is it?
Was,
okay.
The next day. So the story goes on. She leaves after the pictures on Friday. And we all look at ourselves and go, what was that about? She called the next day in the morning and said she'd be returning. She'll be there a little afternoon. And other things happened on Saturday. So this is actually the end of the day. During the course of the afternoon, she's going to show us some artifacts she brought along that were tens of thousands of years old. Before, we were going to be invited to go down to an Andara spiral on the same property, where she's going to capture other images of light interactions.
Okay, so this image is you're sitting on a bench with another person, and it looks like a shower of rainbows come down from the top, kind of like a little, but it's kind of fuzzy. And then there's this swoop here. Okay, now it looks like you're holding a cobra in your hand.
You were the first person that got that on the nose, because when I first saw this, I had thought I was holding something, and there's another shot where I'm kind of standing more or sitting sideways. And I thought it was like a baby dinosaur until someone whispered it's a serpent.
Or it could be a serpent, or if you look closely, it depends. If you look closely, it could also be an owl.
Well, it is a serpent. And
it is a serpent?
I know who it is, and I know why.
Okay. Did you hold a serpent when you were talking to him?
Honey, I wasn't holding anything when these pictures were being taken.
Okay. It is.
That's just it.
Right into his hand. Okay.
Yes. That is Shiva swooping in to protect me for whatever is coming next.
And why do you need protection for what's coming next?
Because in the next course of a couple weeks, I'm actually going to have connections with light beings to the degree that she has.
Okay.
Physical contact. That will take place in Shasta about 2 weeks after this.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to me about any of this, because Vaughn, after this day she left, we still didn't know what this was about.
Okay. That's great. Well, okay. Well, you're holding a snake. I'm not very fond of snakes, but
good
thing it was a psychic image.
Help you. For a long time, I was very ignorant about them too, until I really learned who the Nagas were, and they came from Sarpaloka. When humanity was young, these serpents were wise beyond any measure. They came to assist us. And we're here up until and including Atlantis, when they just saw the handwriting on the wall and they went back home. The thing is, they're willing to share that kind of wisdom back with us. We have to stop getting freaked out about the things that fear has incited into us when we understand what kind of wisdom they carry.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're holding a psychic snake that is captured in picture, but you weren't in real life. And that looks like a snake.
There you go.
All right, next picture. Well, that's really good. See, and here is an interesting one. Some people can say this one looks like just overexposure. A view of somebody else, and then a bunch of light kind of overexposes into the picture. So I'm not. Is there anything special about this one? I'm not seeing anything unique.
You'd have to see the other ones with this one so that you saw the other apparitions that were also collected at the same time. I just sent this because it's my favorite, because it kind of like a bell design. When you see the other ones, you'll see more of the things that you picked out in those light beings before. Oh yeah, well, that one's not the same. There were spots of it. At first, when it came in, well, I need to back up the truck here because let me set the stage. When we were asked to stand in the middle of it, there's a white angel about 4 feet high in the middle of it. And when Mickey and I got behind it, Mickey said, "Can you feel it vibrating?" Well, when I put my hand on top of the angel, oh yeah, there's some kind of energetic vibration taking place. Then I think what I see is the sun, coming out and really like in my eye, but the sun's over in that direction, not coming from over there. Mickey's girlfriend was sitting on a bench on the end of the spiral, and I couldn't see through this, but around the edge of it, I could see where she was sitting. So this light mass had form. I couldn't see through it. It was so, but this is not sunlight.
Oh, okay. Just curiosity. These, it looks like it looks like green glass rocks.
Those are all Andaras. That's an Andara spiral. It's very rare and energetic and like crazy.
Where did they get these large green crystal looking like rocks?
Do you know much about the history behind Andara crystals and where they were found? And if I say the name Lady Nellie, does that ring a bell?
No. Can you give the audience who don't know a brief explanation of this? Is this normal in Mount Shasta?
No. These are found in lands that no one will tell you where they exactly are because they've been protected for a long time. There's a story about a woman, half Indian, half white. Her father had acquired 1,200 acres of Sierra Mountain property in the high desert. Not a wonderful place because high desert gets cold in the winter, hot in the summer. But her father inherited this, and when he passed on, it was hers. Well, Nellie was very sick when she was 5, very sick, wasn't expected to survive. And when the tribal medicine man came along and he saw who she was, he was not only going to heal her, he was going to teach her how to heal herself because there was something inside her that she had that quality about her. So she grew up to be a healer. Somewhere in history, there was a dimensional overlap that created a hyperfield and deposited what we would know if you know what Ethereum is and that kind of powder. And when it crystallizes, it turns into Andara crystal. There's a whole deposit of that stuff on her property. She found it by accident in either at 67 or 69. She and her kids had gone back up to the property at the end of winter. They were getting ready to open up the property. The kids were throwing snowballs and she got hurt by one of the ones. Well, when she reached down to pick it up, it was wrapped around a seafoam Andara. And as soon as she touched it, wow, she could feel some charging. There's energy in this thing. That was the first. So something had happened that opened up an area where they discovered these. And when they found a few, when they finally dug them all out, she had 2.5 tons of this material, all different colors, all different charges. This stuff is made from prima matra. If you understand what I'm saying, it's creation material. It was tucked there for a purpose. God knows how long ago, and here is where it was going to be discovered. She knew it was her mission to have these grid the earth because these are crystals that aren't like quartz and aquamarine, and they're. I'm taking nothing away from those other crystals. They work wonderfully. You imbue your intent into them, they amplify it. Works. This holds consciousness. So what you're passing and their connectivity to one another. Oh my God! You see, you understand the power these things have. Well, so this, when she somehow cross paths with Mickey, and Mickey understood how to distribute things. The marriage between the two over a 25-year period, these things have found their way into Buddhist, temples, and they're everywhere. People understand what the power of these are, and they're remarkable. I carry one in my pocket that has healing qualities, and as much as I doubted that when I got it, it has done it twice in front of me. I've seen it work. Oh my God.
Andari crystals.
Andara.
Andara.
Andara. Yes.
Right. So for those crystal lovers is going, ooh, I gotta get a new one here. That's what we're looking at. And they organize it into a spiral on the ground. And these are big. These are the size of your shoe. Like
super energetic. I'll tell you, I've seen people, I like to talk about the property. And so it's either a wonderful playland for people that are really energetically connected, or it's a freaking minefield for the uninitiated. Because I've seen somebody step out of their car and pass out. They were not ready for this energy surge.
All right. Well, that's a good preface. And we will get into that later, too, because I wanted to talk about the Starbug Mystery School to help people get to the high frequency so they can have good experiences with these types of excursions and explorations. So let's look at the next picture that you sent me. So this picture, it looks like you're laying underneath a statue sculpture, and then there's all these speckled rainbows, like flares shooting all over the place.
What you're seeing is 2 weeks after the photographs we just looked at. Remember when she left Mickey's that Saturday and we didn't know what this was about? Well, we knew that our trips were going to overlap. She was going to be in Mount Shasta the week after that next week. And I was going to be there too. We had agreed because, I didn't get to know her very much in the 2 days that she was there. Heck, I really wanted to understand who she was. But more importantly, she's got something for me. I don't know what it is, but I want it. And so we agreed during the time that we're going to be there, in the time that overlaps, that we would find time to get together. That didn't really happen until Friday of that week, and she was scheduled to leave the next morning. So here, finally, mid-afternoon, found a spot at a campsite, and she pulled out her chair. I pulled out mine, and for the next 45 minutes, she began to tell me the story about her. So the things that I kind of revealed about her, although it's not my story to tell, you know enough about her to appreciate who hybrids are and how they influenced this and me. Now, I had questions of my own. Right, there were things that led up to this, things that were whispering in my ear about Toth that I went, yeah, that's pretty interesting concept. Never thinking that was my thoughts were going to apply to me. She was there to validate all of it. When we first sat down, and I figured out after the fact that she had put Mickey and I through ceremony, that was the first conversation we had. And it went like this. I know you and I have some work to do here, and you have something for me that I don't quite understand yet. You certainly do. But I got some trust issues here because you put Mickey and I through ceremony without advising us you were doing it, much less ask for our consent. And when she said, well, I had to, I knew what she meant by that. Yeah. This wasn't, she didn't do this by her own volition. Some higher authority said, this is what you're supposed to do for Lowell. Our dialogue went on for that after about, I don't know, maybe 2 months, 60 days. She had some follow-up and some other things that she'd done, things that she wanted me to be aware of. And since then, I've reached out to her a few times, haven't heard back. So in my mind, she did what she was supposed to do and she moved on.
Right.
So back to the picture. This was a ceremony that never was planned. After I was invited to one that Friday, when we got through sitting together and I got to ask questions and the why me's and all that and get it's satisfied to a degree, she'd invited me to a private ceremony they were going to on a property that had this energetic pyramid on it. I was invited. I thought I was like the third wheel. No. You are an active fourth participant. You're holding the fourth corner, and I didn't know that. Well, here was where an awareness of time I'd spent in Egypt was going to bubble to the surface, because that wasn't on my radar. Atlantis, got it. Lemuria, yes, well-schooled now. Egypt, really? Well, I get the timeline, but holy cow, this was not what I expected. And in it, that vision, I picked off the top of the Great Pyramid and removed it for the rest of humanity to access the halls of Menti. So it's tuck that away, okay? We finished that evening, get back to where her people that were visiting from Miami were about midnight. And I thought she was gone the next morning. She said, there's one more ceremony I want you to participate in tomorrow. Just meet us here at noon and we'll all follow our way out there together. So I said, okay, I'll be back. So that was the beginning of this. And that ceremony again, about a dozen people, 4 cars. I think I'm a tag-along. No, I'm not the tag-along. This is for me. She stayed an extra day to execute this. So we're going out to a piece of property pretty much out in the middle of nowhere between just north of Mount Shasta and Klamath Falls. 40 minutes away from Mount Shasta, really, there is a property that's a Veterans Memorial. And in it, there's this beautiful sculpture garden. There's a place where you drive into the property, and then there's like a little circle you drive around, and then there's spines that go off in, I think, 7 different directions that have unique sculptures like this one. This just happened to be when I got there and I parked my car and I was unloading my chair and whatnot. I could see this one and it caught my eye. Well, as the rest of the people were getting themselves situated, Kumu came over to me. And she said, I want you to take your chair and I want you to go sit over there and I'll come and give you directions when the time comes. Now, I still don't know what's going on. So they treat this place sacred. She's been here before. They haven't done ceremonies like this one, but they've been here before. And she's going to put me in physical touch with light beings. Now, when she comes over to me after I'm sitting in the chair, she's explaining to me, well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to orient yourself underneath this. Your head's going to go here. Your feet are going to go there. And I want you to get in your mind what your intent is. What questions do you want answered out of this session? Just get that in your mind. Well, I'll tell you what the first one was. I wanted to know whatever this relationship you're telling me about me and Toth, if it's real, if this is really what you got in mind for me, then I'll buy it all. Just show me one light being, I'll buy it all. Well, I didn't see one. I saw 4. What you're seeing right here are all 4 of them in one shot. Okay, there's a whole variety. And I need to say first, before this was going to begin, she said, I want you to give me your phone because we're going to take these pictures with your phone. No one can ever say that I took them on my phone, sent them to you. They will always be in your cloud. They were taken with your phone. So she was capturing these dimensional images with my iPhone.
Yeah. And so did you feel, what did you experience when you were laying down there?
It's a good question. So there were physical and audible parts of it. At first, when I was laying there getting in a meditative state, so I had my eyes closed, I heard this buzzing. So think of like the biggest hummingbird you've ever seen, heard of, that kind of vibration with that kind of, that was right here, right over my right-hand quadrant here. And then it stopped. I thought, well, that's interesting. And of course, I'm thinking, it had to be like a critter. Just flew into the frame and out he went.
Right.
Well, then it started on my left-hand side. And what I became more aware of is, wait, if that's a critter, it's not moving anywhere. It's like stationary. And a critter would have to hover. If that was a hummingbird, it doesn't stay still. And then it stopped. And then it started one last time right behind my head. And this time when it did, as I was listening to that, there was an energy surge that went like from my crown, like through me. Felt like, a chills when you're not cold, just like an energetic something. And it's 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon without a cloud in the sky.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next picture. I think that's the last of that set of pictures. Here's the last picture you sent me.
Yes.
So what we're looking at is there's Lowell laying underneath the statue. And in the picture, it looks like there's something physically hovering and spinning so fast that you can't see it. So it just looks like this blur. And you can see the light reflect on one side, and then the other side, there's no light. So what is this thing that's hovering over in this picture?
Go ahead and tell them what it is.
Is a UFO?
It's a ship.
It's a ship. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a small ship? I mean, it's pretty small.
I have no frame of reference, so I don't know. Was it close to the camera? Was it over me? I don't know the perspective. But toward the end, she took about 15 or 16 total pictures. And these, toward the end, were 6 or 7 of them. And at first, I didn't see the green thing at the top. I was looking at me on the bottom. Okay, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to show me? Well, then I caught the top. And you could see in each frame how this thing rotated. Yeah, she said that's the ship spinning over you.
Oh, you have other pictures?
There are like 6 or 7 of these.
Okay, so when you had 6 or 7 of these, and then you put them together, then you can
you can see them
rotating.
You can see the motion. Yes.
Okay. And so this looks like, because it's in the picture frame, it's not obviously a citywide ship. So I wonder, how small are the inhabitants? Or is there anybody inside the ship? How small are they? Because it doesn't look that big of a ship.
The day that you're ready to crack open that rabbit hole, we'll go down it, because I think that there are some perspectives of light travel, light bodies, and how those packages come together and are transported that we don't really have a clear vision of. And, when we think of what we've seen on TV and markups and all that, all I can tell you is this, that light ships don't move like that. They do not require propulsion the way that we know we have to push ships. You know what I mean? They don't do that. Yes, they're light craft, and they move wherever they want, whenever they want, at whatever rate they want. And that's what, when that phenomenon's actually been captured and they say it was here and then it was there and then it disappeared and then went up, that's how.
Yeah. It goes wherever it focuses on, right?
Telekinesis is really how you get where you want to go. And then you control the amount of energy and your density. The reason we can see those and they disappear is they're changing density in the craft so that, yes, now it's within our field of awareness and we get to see it. Until we're not in their field of awareness and they want back to 4th or 5th dimension, and off they go. They're still there. We can't see them.
Right. So I always give this analogy when it comes to seeing interdimensionally. It's like when you're looking at a fan, and the fan speed goes faster. You can still see the blades moving, but as it goes higher in frequency and speed, all of a sudden it looks like it's disappeared. You just don't see the blades anymore.
That's a really wonderful analogy.
Yeah. So when some people see some things and others, like you might be standing in the same room or the same space. Some people see things that's happening and others don't. It has to do with the matching of the frequency of what it is they're viewing and the receiver. So
I love to hear you just continue to support that notion. That is the one thing that people really need to embrace. If you raise your vibration, wait till you see what's around you, because it's magnificent.
Yeah. So this image, it is spinning, and it's hovering right there. And the thing with the light beings, and correct me and add some information, is they can change size because they're just energy. So they can change size to larger or smaller, physical or non-physical, depending on the, like you say, density or the frequency of the spin of their
I carefully use this phrase because I don't want people to think that there's anything negative or they can shapeshift. They can turn into whatever form they wish to because they're light bodies. They're light, and they're not even as dense as crystalline form. They've left that behind too. They're just light.
Right.
We see different apparitions of them, but they still have form. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Well, obviously there has to be some kind of form because they had DNA that the military used to put into volunteer military personnel to have light
Yes.
being human hybrids, like your friend who was a tour guide. So,
Yes.
but you have to be pretty high frequency even to capture this in your camera.
Bullseye.
Yeah. So it's like some
Yes.
people capture ghosts and spirits and all that kind of stuff in the cameras where others don't see very much at all. It depends on your
That's
frequency.
exactly why. You'll capture what's on your vibration. You know, I always wonder, I like to know the nuts and bolts. So I really want to understand whatever chemistry is working between me and this camera. When I am in a higher dimensional state, why does this same technology allow me to capture that, which I see there, but here that no one else can see? That's actually really magic. Think about it.
So this is fascinating. So let me go to this next picture. So here's me, and this goes to my next question as well. So in Laos, Thailand, and many Southeast Asian countries, we have these smaller relic temples built by deceased royalty or landlords. So there's one in northern Laos that I visited called the Tomu Monument, which talks about a local king that went to 5D Mount Kailash to learn the metaphysic arts from wise residents of Shamballa. Okay, so he only studied for a couple months, but when he returned, he did not age more than a couple months. But in the 3D world, it was 1,000 years, and his wife committed suicide after hearing a rumor that he died, and she waited all that time for him. Later, he did remarry a young woman that he believed is the reincarnation of his deceased wife. So this is a long-held knowledge that the higher dimensional realities of consciousness and its inhabitants vibrate faster than lower, slower, third dimensional consciousness, peoples, and realities. So I'm supposed to take pictures of copyright-free pyramids and megaliths of Lemuria in this life for my book series, which is part of a pre-life agreement with the spirit world. And long periods of lost time upon my return is a concern that I have. So, so my book series, Buddhist Mandalas, covered half of my agreement with the spirit world to teach people about their Merkabas or their aura fields. And I am excited but anxious with the Lemurian Pyramids book series because of that whole time lapse thing. So, this, let me show you really quick. So this is the Tomu
Sure.
Monument, okay? And this is later on because the people were shorter. Okay, people were shorter. However, I also visited Wat Pu. Okay, here's my Wat Pu. It's also in Laos. And this is just one of many. Actually, let me go to here. Well, this is me and my friend. We trekked around Laos together.
Good for you.
This is my Mercedes Benz in Laos. She never let this elephant never let anybody ride her. So the guy was just was walking behind us the whole time. And I just rode this elephant the whole time, and he was walking behind us because he was like, he's never seen a tourist just she would allow anybody just to get on and then she just started walking off. Yeah. They would do pictures, so I would get on the plank and I would sit on the top and they'll do pictures, but then she just started walking on. So he just started following me. So he was very surprised. But here's the picture. Here's Wat Pu in Laos, and it is the sister mini temple of Angkor Wat. So if you go Angkor Wat and you face towards Laos, it goes to the sister temple, which is Wat Pu in Laos. And in ancient temples, they built it just like we build houses and things proportional to the height of the average person here in modern times. Okay. We're not building 30 feet doorways because we don't have 30 feet people. Okay. So if you're looking at archaeology and you're looking at ancient temples, they built it to size of the people living there. So I'm 5'4", so this is almost twice my size. These were all the doorways, and so I know there's folklores now of people going, oh yeah, and then here's the temple and here's that temple, but the archaeology has to fit the people at the time. This is also in Laos, northern Laos. This is the plain of jars, thousands of these megalithic jars, and there's a whole folklore about that. Here's just to see the size and the scale of these jars. But this is where, Lowell, I need you to kind of help me with this paranoia that I have about going further into this book project of taking copyright pictures for the megaliths and the pyramids of Lemuria, because I have to get over this fear that I'm going to lose 1,000 years when I come back. So,
no. Here's how I look at it. In fact, this is a topic that's actually come up recently for me.
Okay.
I don't consider myself an artist, but somebody showed me a program, and because I thought, maybe there's a way I can put these keywords in here and somehow bring to mind and bring to life what I have seen in Inner Earth. And when I did, I went, oh my God. Well, first of all, the program's amazing. And second of all, God darn, it's pretty reminiscent to it. It's as close as I'm going to get out without being able to take a picture. And I've always said, I held on to the idea, man, if I could take this off my head and let you look at it like a VR machine and see what I saw, that's the only way you'll ever really appreciate what it was. So when I saw this program, it started to spawn the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. I had put a few out. I had done the hydroponic gardens. I had done the temple, and I had done Inner Earth. And man, it hit a nerve with people. Okay, I got your attention because this is as close as I can come to. This is what it looks like. It excited lots of people that wanted to know more about Telos and Lemuria. And so see how the fever's starting to grow again. So I don't consider myself an artist at all. I can replicate it. To me, that was divinely inspired. Holy shit, yes. Now, I've seen graphic artists from all over the world remark on these things. In fact, they want them for their walls. And when they did, they said, you need to put your name on those things. And I took a beat, and I already knew what my answer was. But I waited until someone brought it up a second time, and I felt as though I was compelled to give you my answer. So here it is. It's hard for me to claim any kind of copyright on something that was divinely inspired. That was meant for everybody else. How am I supposed to take credit for it? So, I can't speak to anybody's intent. If they decide that they want to steal it, perpetuate it on their own, I can't stop that. But on the other hand, if that's another way that it gets spun around the world, so be it.
Yeah. So I'm showing on the screen, I'm showing a series of megaliths and pyramids all over the world. Even in China, they have the White Pyramids of China, which is very hush-hush. They do not want people taking pictures, but some tourists snuck out some pictures of the pyramids in China. But they're all over the world. And here's this one is in Korea.
They're everywhere. You know what their real purpose is.
This is the China
pyramids really are, right?
Go ahead and enlighten everybody. This one is the Jin Yang Pyramid in.
These are energetic sources that attach us to other stargates, to other places off the planet. They were not built to hold former pharaohs. They were not built for any of that. If you really take a look at them, there's always a strategic alignment with some kind of star set, so that when you look at it, you know what time of year it is. And when it's that time of year, these things happen. They're energetic portals to elsewhere.
Kind of like airports, right?
In a way, but they
like
also anchor the energy grid for the planet.
So this one is a is a picture of the Chinese pyramids, and they do not want they don't want tourists there. They don't want any of that stuff. So they actually planted a bunch of trees, but it still looks like a bunch of trees on a pyramid. Chinese government is very funny about they don't want to rewrite their history. In Southeast Asia, it's easier. Southeast Asia is easier to cover pyramids. But if you guys want to look at Google Earth to see, here's the latitude and longitude of the Chinese pyramids. So here's another one. They planted trees to cover.
I'm very interested in those formations because I'm the Capricorn. I want to know how were those built.
Oh yeah, this is Unaguni right here. You got to go underwater. It's only 60 feet from Japan, in a small island, but they're megalithic. This one is the Bosnian pyramids. Now, that one has
make you wonder what else is underneath the surface that we know is there? We just haven't discovered yet. There's a lot of it.
Well, the Bosnian pyramids was one of the best things that ever happened to Bosnia because it brought ecotourism there. They do volunteers, people volunteer to kind of help dig. And it brought so much business for the local tourist industry there that they have the Pyramid of the Sun. And people come there some people come there only for the energy healing. They trek up to the very top and they say that they get a lot of healing.
Ask. Do they allow people to be on the mountain?
They do. This is the pyramid.
Amazing.
The mountain is the pyramid, and they have already proven it.
I misspoke because I meant to say pyramid. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That was not unintentional. That was not man-built. There was none of those things.
Yeah. So this is the Bosnian pyramids, and a lot of people go there for archaeology, for excavation, just to commune with the pyramid. Many of them go up to the very top because there's a lot of people report energy healing phenomenons with their illnesses and whatnot. So there's a lot of that, and all these pyramids in all the cultures they're in report much of the same stuff as well. But if you're in a environment that has a pyramid, it is a big ecotourism industry. And I wonder if you're fifth dimensional consciousness or higher, do you get a different experience at these sites than somebody who's third dimensional consciousness? Just kind of like with those pictures.
You get to see more than that. See, you're looking at these things and wonder in a third dimensional perspective. You don't see the etheric, fifth dimensional construct over that. There are different colors, different forms that you're just not ready to see yet. Plus, you're trying to see them through your eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have limitations with that to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then here is Southeast Asia has architecture. It just basically, they look like vimanas. Many of the temples look like vimanas, and many of the temples, the doorways are not small, except for the later ones are small. The earlier ones are very high archways. They look like vimanas. They look like power plants. Okay, so even in Africa, there are pyramids there too. So Hawaii has one. I have yet to go to this Hawaii one. Yeah. So anyways, but that is the thing that is a fear that many people have, is because you went through your experience and you came back in a relatively normal time frame. So unlike those folklores where they went back for a couple months and they missed thousands of years or a whole 1,000 years, that's the fear that many people in Southeast Asia have about, even if the high frequency, some of them have that about going to these different portal sites because they're afraid that they may not come back to their life with their family and their friends in the same time frame. So can you address that fear, because you did it and you came back?
I sure can.
And we're still here in the same time frame. So
yeah, I can see where people could slip timelines. I have an understanding of how that could happen. where you
Tell
would
us
drift
about
off
that.
and not come back until later. Well, that's more of a dream, and I don't like to project into the future only for this one reason, because the next choice I make is going to just alter where I was going in the future anyway. And I'd rather, I was reminded recently, live in the moment. Yes, Buddhists had it down pat. Don't look at the back. Don't look where you're going. Enjoy this and watch what unfolds next. My intent is clear to the universe, what I want back in abundance. They're working on it. So just hold steady, hold your space, and just wait till they give you what you're going to send. Because as soon as you do it, they're going to blow you away with the next thing.
Okay, good.
So when people have fear like that, they're stuck in this. We're here for duality. We're here to understand physicality. So all those things that you're describing are concepts of what we are playing out here. Because in the next realm, you'd never look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You already know that concept up there, that all those people I thought I lost and died, here they are around me. They're all waiting for us. We go back to that place. You got to believe that you have incarnation, that's a real thing, and that you've had past lives. You go back to that realm to recycle. And in there, we are all one, and we all love one another there. It's only when we come back here to learn some more three-dimensional lessons, we drop our vibration. We are in a lousy density. We got to crawl back out with no tools to begin with. Whatever knowledge we have, that's been tucked away until later. Maybe you'll remember it. Maybe you won't in this incarnation. But that's the game you're playing. I'm not saying that it's not beneficial, because that's part of the universe evolution. This is part of our purpose. You are a spark of source. You broke off with all the tools that he has, and all the time that Jesus has been trying to tell us God's inside of us. He was exactly right. We just didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So we carry that around with us until we get here, and our density has to drop in order to enjoy this. But we've signed up for some lessons. Our soul contract is, this is what I want to learn, and I know I got to learn the good and the bad parts. That's the contrast. It's a dual world of duality. Here's what you signed up for. When you're done, you go back, you either get more lessons and you recycle, or no, I'm done, I'm going to ascend.
Yeah.
That's the place that's done.
Okay. So, that's good to know. So, like when I resume my travels, my Buddhist folklore archaeology travels to different portal points along the Lemurian Islands or Pacific Islands, then I just have to know that I'm going to go there. I'm going to have these experiences. I'm going to take these pictures, whatever comes through, and then I'm going to come back and continue on with my life. So I'm not going to miss the next 50 years. Like, I came back and everybody passed away. Okay, good. That is a fear that a lot of Southeast Asian people have, because they live around these ancient temples and these portal points around these megalithic areas. And many of them know where they are, but they stay away from them because they have heard of these stories of people coming back and missing huge gaps in time. And
that's unfortunate, because look, there's some magic around all that. You can only imagine what the ethereal world is like over there. Wouldn't you like to dive into that? Just embrace it. They've been shut out of that because they've been conditioned by this idea that they should be afraid of this and that. And there is nothing around us but benevolent life. And the higher dimensions, they're all benevolent. I can't deny that there was manipulation that took place here, that there was negative energies that influenced our progression, shall we say, but that element's gone. Now there's residue of it left over, and that's what we look around ourselves and go, what the hell. I still hold New Earth is right around the corner, so I'm not going to pay more attention to all this white noise around me. I've seen what comes next, and even if you took me tomorrow, God, great. I'm so ready. I know what's there. I get to slip between dimensions now, and I'm beginning to see some other people that their awareness is getting to my level, and they get to experience the same things too. That's what I'm waiting for. So I'm not the only one doing the work too.
So what we're looking at in the screen is this is where you went to the Telos portal. So you have to hike with your tour guides, and you guys hiked all the way up to. Let me pull up one of these pictures here. Bunny Flat Trailhead. It's like a hike. So, now, are there certain techniques that you use to find nature portals? Do you use dowsing rods, meditation?
No.
What do you do to find these
You just
spots?
feel it. You are an energetic being. And when you give into that feeling and surrender to it, oh, you'll feel them. And then once you start to feel them and you learn what to look for, you'll see little idiosyncrasies in those areas. Because when the first time I went to Shasta and I was looking for these, energetic places, you'd feel them because I go off trail. I don't follow where everybody else goes. And, you're drawn to an area. Well, after you're drawn to a few of them, now you can see some commonalities. And there in Shasta, you don't see a lot of green areas, like matted, you know what I mean? But these energetic areas have them. Yes. And you'll see this green patch that doesn't belong here with a tree in the middle and rocks around it. Okay. You wanted me to notice, here it is. You feel the energy between them before you get there. And if you're an kind of light worker, you now understand what you have to do. You're going to plant your light here too, and just contribute to that spot.
Yeah. So you
see how green this one is? That's a good example. When you look at it, doesn't it just look like fairy habitat, right?
Yeah. Well, where there's high energy, that's where there's a lot of growth anyways.
But it's all rock and trees. Tell me how it's so lush.
Yeah. So you look for super lush areas like this.
That's what I've learned to look for. At first, it was just strictly energetic, but now you can start to look off in the distance because you recognize those things. But you've got to do this enough to have that frame of reference.
Well, what about what's up with this one? Because all the trees are clustered in this circle, and then they all are kind of grown in a kind of an angle, like the energy is curved.
Yeah. Now you would think that was the curves were a mechanism of the wind.
Is that wind?
Really.
Oh, it's not?
That's what I thought, but it's not that. They, when I see those configurations, I think fairy circle. You know how
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of fairy circle because they can get really big. It's just a circle or of all mushrooms or all flowers, all just green patch in a circle.
That's exactly how I see these. Yes.
Yeah. So, but this is a fairy circle of pine trees growing in a full circle and growing not in a straight line, but growing in an angle, the same angle.
Honey, I saw some trees that were folded over boulders. Now, how do you do that? And still living.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this would this be an indicator of a portal or energy vortex right there?
Energy vortex. Yes. And that's why when you're going through here, I had taken, screenshots of the coordinates. So when somebody asked after the Telos thing, well, didn't you take a snapshot of where you were? Yeah, like I thought of that, but I have since. And every time I find one of these energetic portals, yes, everybody who has an iPhone has a compass on it. You can screenshot it, and here's your longitude and latitude. I am right here.
Okay, so are you guys doing any kind of meditations or anything? Do you go into the center when you find these vortex points in nature? Do you go into the center? What do you guys do? Is there something that you guys do?
Well, I'm alone for the most part when I go there. And I have that technique where I'm going to ground my light here. I take 4 infinity breaths and intentionally plant my light. It wasn't until this year that, and it wasn't, I'd taken couples up to these energetic areas before, mostly young people who were interested. And they were good because they were engaged. Lemuria was a trigger. Telos was a trigger. And as much as that they could get in, they were hungry. It wasn't until this year that I agreed to take more people. And I did so reluctantly. Honestly, we know how collective energy works. And when you get, it just takes one person's vibration to drop everybody else's. That was what I was consciously aware of in preparation for adding this as a workshop this year. Well, about a week before, my guide said, you got to let it go, Lowell. It's not up to you. All we're asking you to do is take these people there. Because the other thing going through my head is, okay, they got this expectation that they probably think that they're going to go to Telos too. And I can't promise that. I don't know what their experience is going to be. All I can do is I hope that they have some.
Right.
Well, after the first day, they reported back to the event coordinator. I've heard about it after the fact. Everybody had some kind of experience. Beyond me, I took them there. I set the table. It worked. We, in fact, found the first thing that drew me to that area in the first place was a cave. Somebody actually found a cave while we were up there, and I had not. Somebody had sketched the next day. Somebody, a being that they had seen walking. And damn it, Bon, when I saw it, it looked like Alex from my visit. How do you do that? Somebody else, 3 others, wandered off in another direction. These people were not hikers by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I was explaining the first time I came, I kind of went up that way, and then I worked my way along the ridge, and I ended up over there. So we'll be over there. 2 hours later, they showed up in a place that it was impossible for them to get in the amount of time and the amount of distance they had to cover. We know they found the vortex.
They went through a vortex. When you go through a vortex, here's the concept. If it typically takes you an hour to drive through that space or walk through that space or whatever, but all of a sudden you do it in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then you went through some kind of time portal. That's the concept. So, and these happen. Every single hiker who's an avid hiker has these experiences where they're like, how did I scale that in such a quick amount of time? And I want you to go over some, because it's good that, and this is one of the reasons why in ecotourism and metaphysical ecotourism, a lot of people, they just want a guide that has the experience, just pick, a safety. Because safety first. And if you know where to go, then just take us there. Some people might be going there just for energy healing. Some people might be going there just to take some pictures. You never know what they're going to get. Everybody's going to get something different. So I completely agree with your friend that, Lowell, don't judge why they're asking you to go there. They made it here. Now take them to the destination that they are hiring you for. So, what are some best practices and safety that people can keep in mind when they're doing this? Let's say not with an excursion tour.
Yeah, every place is different. You described Sedona, and I happen to love Sedona. It's a great place to hike because you can get to some phenomenal things with they're right off the road. That's a different hiking environment as Shasta is. The areas that I've been directed to take people is a lot more loose rock. They call it scree. So like for every 2 steps you're going to take, you're going to slide back 1. You just have to be aware that that phenomenon it's going to wear you out a little bit. I always suggest carry a walking stick. It doesn't hurt to have one more thing to lean on. Sometimes you need to move something with it. They're always handy. Think like a hiker, bring some water while you're out there and take your time. You're in no hurry. If you're really out here to connect with, source, then enjoy it along the way. I stopped frequently. The map areas where you're showing, when I returned, it was 4 hours to get back there. Now, yes, I had to hike and it was a long way, but honestly, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I stopped to enjoy those wooded areas. Oh, yeah. I stayed there to take the energy in there because it was amazing. You had this whole space to yourself. Who gets to do that? There was no footprints of any kind. So if anybody had been here before, it's been a long time. That's so rare. And when you really want to connect to solemn, quiet, you got to go way off trail to find it. When you finally do, that's all you want.
Right. So you guys really get good at hiking best practices. We want you guys, if you're interested in these metaphysical eco-tourist excursions, like finding portals in the mountains, in the parks, etc. finding nature trails where it'll take you to a fairy circle and all these fun activities. We also want you to be safe. So have your backpack, have your hydration, your water. Watch out for weirdos. Especially I gotta tell this to kids. I gotta tell it to kids
Okay.
because there's a lot of young people who listen to the podcast, and I'll tell you my experience of hiking in the park and being followed by somebody. And I look back and I hiked farther away on the trail, and there was the person was still behind me, and I turned around and I asked him, "Are you following me?" And he said no. And so I just got off the trail, walked to the river, just got off and walked to the river, which wasn't far away. And he came down the trail and walked towards the river. And then I knew that he was following me. So then I made a lot of noise. I yelled really loud, and there was hikers coming up, and I pointed at him and called him out for following a little kid. And and then kind of walked back, and the guy hightailed out because he got called out for his activity, and other hikers were wanting to find him and question him and seeing if I was okay and whatnot. So I just wanted to say this for the young people who are hiking with your friends and you're going out and you're trying to find nature portals in your neighborhood, in the backwoods of your park, wherever you guys are. Be safe and be cautious of if you see suspicious activity. Deal with it appropriately, like keep a distance, stay away from them, and then make a lot of noise to get them away from you. Because that's all that I can say if you're like a little kid with your friends hiking in the woods and you see this stuff. But for the most part, go with groups of people, friends. A tour guide is best. And if you're going to do these long excursions, like going to Bunny Flat Trailhead in Mount Shasta, which is a 4-hour trek, make sure you have the proper equipment. I can't
Yes.
emphasize it more
I
because
neglected to mention hiking boots have good hiking boots. I've seen people in sandals and I have no idea what they think they're doing. There's no traction, and it's going to be hard on your feet and legs even with hiking boots. It's strenuous. But if you want to find these places, you're going to have to be up and fit to go to those spots. And Shasta's calling a lot of people now. Yet I wasn't drawn to it until it called me, and look what happened.
Yeah. Now let's go to the next one. These are all on your website. It's in the show notes as well. So when you guys went up and you found the spots, is there anything?
Yeah, isn't that one cool? Oh my God, I stumbled on that one, but oh my God, the energy around that was crazy. There's a tree inside of those rocks.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, you see some fun stuff. Let me go through this. And when you guys found a spot a portal point, let me go here.
That was the portal spot from my
this right
first
here?
visit. No, the last one.
Yeah, that's
one
this
more
one
back.
Here.
That right there. Yes, in fact, I did not take that. The following year in May, I heard from a guy who lived in Tahoe. He goes by Russian Duck. And he had put together enough of where he thought I had said I had been and the photographs I had taken. And I'll be damned if on a Sunday afternoon, now mind you, the road between Bunny Flats and the top is not open. So you got to hike up there. He hiked all the way up that 3.5-mile road to find this spot and took pictures from it. I'll be damned if he didn't find it.
Okay, tell us your experience. So your first time you went in, you found this spot. This is a portal point, and this is when
looking out back toward where I would have come from. Way off in the distance is that parking lot, as high as you can drive on Mount Shasta, the old ski bowl trail.
Right.
This, from where I was looking a few days earlier, when the sun hit it right, it looked like it had the potential to have like cave openings. So I decided one day I was going to explore this area and see if, in fact, there might be some. This was one of those areas that looked suspect. And as I made my way over here, I could tell, first of all, it wasn't a spot a lot of people went. And where I was really interested in going, there was no trail that went to it. So I'm going off trail for sure. But it was worth the exploration. As I was moving up, and that's when I began to sense these smaller energetic vortexes. And oh my God, when you stepped into them, they just felt good. The first one I planted myself on was one of those that had a little bit of green that I hadn't noticed. But I did notice here's tree with like it was in the middle of 4 rocks. That doesn't look like it was less intentional, but it had to be nature had to engineer that. So I stood there and I was going to take that in, plant my light there. And I saw just off to my left and a little bit higher, there was another one similar. So I thought I wanted a little more elevation. So I moved over to this spot, was starting to position myself and get used to it in the same way, got the same good feeling. And then I saw one last spot with 3 rocks. So what you're looking at here is like, that's the middle rock. And then just to the right, that one was a little higher than my inseam, but narrow enough for me to go over. And once you got over that rock, oh man, there's plenty of room to sit on the ground and stretch your legs out and lean your back up against the mountain. So really the only thing that's between you and the rock of the mountain is the brush that's dried there.
Okay.
Well, after I had looked in that direction, I had planted my light, sat down, I was having some water, some grapes. When I'd finished that, I was listening to music on my iPad. And just about this time, the sun was a little further than overhead. But I started to sense where I was sitting like a shadow that was moving across the ground. And not fast, but it was moving so that you could visibly see them. And while I noticed this, almost above me, it felt like there was a canopy of similar nature kind of coming over my top. So I stood up a little bit to kind of take note of it. And then I felt a breeze from behind me, a breeze. And when I turned around, there's a hole behind me where I was just leaned up against rock and dry brush. And when I stand up to take it in, this thing's at least a foot, maybe more taller than I am. So here's an opening that is looking into where I am as the light's starting to adjust. There's a little rise that comes up and then it goes downward. It took a little while for me to kind of let the light adjust because what I'm looking into, there's no sunlight coming in. But as that is coming around, it looks like there's somebody down there on the left-hand side.
It's like a black hole that was behind you all of a sudden? It just appeared a black hole?
In retrospect, this is a lava tube, which makes total sense. These are all volcanic craters back there, and it would make sense that these cavities exist. That's what I believe it to be.
Okay.
When I finally figure out that, yes, in fact, there's somebody down there, that's when I hear somebody say, would you like to see Telos? Yeah, you get a little adrenaline rush through you, but if this is something I've never experienced before, I don't get any vibe, but this is dangerous. And you know me, I had, prior to this experience, honey, I had hoped to go to Mount Shasta because I knew that phenomenon like running into an ascended master, like Saint Germain, is no legend. This happens here. So here I am. It's just me, guys. I really want to make connection with one of you. There's no one else around, so nobody needs to know. Let's do this thing. Never did I expect that someone's going to invite me into Telos. Because up to that point, you know what I knew about Telos? I'd seen it on the cover of a book in town like 2 days earlier.
Okay.
I had Lemurian, kind of sensibilities in me. But I still didn't really understand that. Well, I was about to get an education. And in retrospect, after I figured that out, I'm one of them. And I won't know realize that for months. That's why you got to come back.
Right. So you are what? You reincarnate as Lowell Johnson as a human in this lifetime to be kind of an ambassador to Telos because you were a resident of Telos?
You're doing a really good job
Is it-
explaining this.
okay.
Now I understand that one of the purposes I caused when I came here, and you kind of have to have an understanding of who Blue Ray children were and why they even came to the planet in the early 50s. Well, think back for just a moment. I'm going to give you a little history lesson on
Yes.
why the ETs have really shown such interest, elevated interest in communicating with us. And not the least of which is Earth is ascending, and that's a cosmic cycle that we have no control over. That's here, but they took particular interest after World War II. And you know why? Because we did stupid things, like set off nuclear bombs, set off a hydrogen bomb in Japan, and that got their attention. After that, we did it a second time as a test mushroom in Las Vegas or just outside there in Nevada. Here, they said, we're stepping in. And, you know, they can't influence, they can't step in from their realm because humanity and this is all an experiment. But they can certainly seed people on this side and come in through their incarnations and come to awakenings. And so when the time comes, you remember you're a Lemurian and you remember what you came here to do. And when you got on this side, yes, when that shift takes place and they suggest that you're an emissary, you were one of them. You're going to make it easy for that transition to take place because you were another one who came to incarnate on this side to be that person that was going to hold light and hold that space. There's a lot more of just me, but this is what I've come to terms with.
Right. So so it's like the prime directive. You can't interfere with evolving civilization. They have to come to higher consciousness and the higher dimensions on their own. They have to learn through their own and evolve on their own time frame. However, because Earth is raising her frequency and her vibration and going up, when you raise your vibration and frequency, you go up in, like we'll be talking about speed. So you go up into a higher dimensions and higher dimensions of existence and consciousness that you no longer are easily visible.
You don't vibrate at the same level. That's right.
You don't, so the lower beings don't see you. So if Earth is going up, that means we have to catch up with Earth as well, right?
Wonderfully put. Put.
So everybody has to work on their fifth dimensional consciousness, getting up to those frequencies and maintaining those frequencies, so that we can rise up with Earth, because she's going to go regardless, because she has her own cycle. But these light beings in these higher dimensions, they got wind of some of the atomic bombs that we were doing. Did it vibrate into the higher dimensions and they felt it, or how did they?
Oh, they're well aware. They're around us and observing what's going on here too. They can see us. You can see down into dimensions and see the effects.
You just can't see up.
You don't have to step. We can't see up because our vibration isn't that high.
Right. Kind of like the Celestine prophecy, right? The Celestine prophecy.
It's a lot like that.
Okay.
There were some other evidence that made this all be really, it sunk in to this whole mindset on why they're intervening in the way that they are now. You had heard reports, I'm sure of it, that there was some footage on military bases on here's a missile with a warhead, and we were preparing it for, I don't know, test purposes or whatever. There were reports in that incident and photographs, a video, I believe, of this light thing that was over the top of it. And it looked at it and it shot a beam of light from one direction. It went to the opposite direction, shot another beam of light at it. It went to the other side, immediately quadrant, did it there and on the other side. And when they were finished with that little light show, they had disabled the warhead.
Right. So I want to ask you this, because one of the fears that people have is, and they've been conditioned to this as well, is this World War III doomsday apocalypse where we basically bomb each other and bomb the whole planet. But you're saying from your experience with Telos and the higher dimensional beings and these what we call aliens, quote in quotes, they're neutralizing and disassembling our missiles capabilities. So If they're
Yes.
doing that, this whole World War III apocalyptic, we bomb each other over resources and whatever war games you're playing, it's not likely going to happen. They're not going to let it happen. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
with great certainty, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, there that answers that question that people have. So what
Yes.
you focus on, you create. If you don't like it, don't focus on it.
Absolutely. Look, that's whatever you give your attention over is where you feed your energy. So if you want to feed your energy on the idea that we're going to have World War III, you're actually contributing to that idea. And I don't really think intentionally you wanted to feed it that. So be mindful about where your mind goes, because you are co-creators, in fact.
Right.
There's one thing that, I'm more aware of what New Earth really looks like and how we get there. And over time, it's going to come out soon, because a lot of this has been revealed like in the last few days. Now I see the nuts and bolts that gets us from here to there. And it's going to happen sooner than we expected. However, I always wondered, when that day finally comes, am I just naked on the other end and this crystalline body and here's a lot of my friends and there's nothing, we have to start over? That's not the answer. Here's the answer. We already in our minds have created what we're about to step into. Everything we need, everything we're going to do, everything that we connect to has already been mapped out as a blueprint in all our minds. And that's what we go from this instance and this mindset here to that in a blink. And when we get on the other side, our forms are different. The way that we, dress and talk to one are different. We've seen everybody, every soul that we've ever known is around us again. And now we get to either stay here with New Earth and help her complete the cycle, because she's not going to stand for very long. No, we're just adjusting karma there. When that's done, you zip to 5. We're on our way back to 7th dimension. That's what she was to begin with. That's where we're going.
Okay, so let me ask you about this, because you're talking about when you see New Earth or the next dimension or whatever you want, heaven and earth, whatever people want to label it as. Yeah, we just it's like a blink of an eye, we're there. It's like we reality shift. We teleport from one version of reality to another version of reality. Is that what it's like? Is this, you're just gonna be there and be like,
that's the best way for our human 3D minds to comprehend it. But yes, in essence, that's exactly what happens. Our bodies and our cellular structures are already preparing this. And when we're talking about this additional quality of light that we're receiving, we're now receiving what's called full spectrum light. We've lived for eons on half light. No. And this is why there's some other coding that's coming our way, humans. So first of all, the manipulated DNA, there's a method now for us to have it removed before it is replaced with our original human design codex, which was uninterrupted and uncontaminated. Now, in addition to that, our cellular structures are now being upgraded to hold greater light and higher frequencies. So can you see what we're preparing to do? That's already inside of us. And man, when that day comes, that snap in between, your physicality has already been set. It's been getting there for decades.
Right. Dr. David R. Hawkins is one of my favorite teachers. And he was a mental health doctor. He wrote many, many books like Power versus Force and many others. And he created the map of consciousness, which is what he came here from Source. He says it himself. He says he was at Source in Nirvana in the spiritual emptiness of nothing, and he was happy. But Source pushed him out of that, and basically he was born. And he was like, "Why am I a kid again? I don't want this." But the point of his life was to create the map of consciousness through kinesiology. But anyways, he said in his life work that there's an offshoot of humanity that he calls Homo spiritus. They're highly evolved spiritual beings, almost like Lemurians, very technological, spiritual, with sixth sense and all these extraordinary abilities that six senses are basically natural abilities, but they resonate and exist at higher frequencies. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like it's kind of like for people to understand six senses and frequency of people. It's like you look at two kids and you look at one and say, "Hey, you have the ability to be 6 feet tall and just jump really high and reach that tree." However, you need to grow to that height to get that height so that you can do what you're capable of doing, what your potential is. With six senses, and this is the Buddhist understanding of six senses because we do a lot of six sense training for people who have gone through their awakening and raising their frequency. When you spiritually evolve your consciousness to higher dimensions, and it's like you're growing spiritually, then just like you grow physically with your body to get, let's say, 6 feet tall to do those jumps, you grow spiritually in your energy field higher and higher. And then when you reach a certain benchmark, different six senses will just come available and online for you. That's why as you go higher in your frequency, you'll have more than one sixth sense.
You're doing a wonderful job of describing people sliding into higher dimensions. Yes, you're going to, through the spiritual lessons that you're learning, and by the way, contributing back to the Akash. So thank you very much. They're lessons the rest of us don't have to learn.
Yes.
You are still evolving as well. We don't stop at 5. 5, as we understand it, is the end of human physicality, and then we return to 6th-dimensional light beings. And there's the stratas above that, 7, 8, and 9. They're all represented here on this planet. If you read the Emerald Tablets, when they're talking about the 7 lords, they're talking about the ones that overrule the 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, 5th dimension, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's who they are. There is influence in each one of those that's babysitting that part of the realm on behalf of the Galactic Federation. They were given the authority to guard those areas. Watch humanity as they're coming through, and we were taken advantage of along the way, but we learned our lesson, and this part is done. Thank God. We can't go back to 3rd dimensional density because the Earth is going to be that in the next stage, which is right around the corner. That 3rd dimensional, it doesn't exist.
Right. I want to say this also about, because you keep talking about light and frequencies and how our DNA and cellular DNA is changing from this light and frequency. So, yes, David R. Hawkins said that is from his life work going to happen.
How long ago? I'm just as a frame of reference. How long ago was that?
He said it in one of his recordings when he was alive. But see, here's the thing about David Hawkins, because I read everything and hear every speech that he's ever had, and I'm one of his students, and I love him. But anyways, as he got into his senior years, he started doing kinesiology and asking questions about parallel realities. And he started getting answers that, yes, you will experience parallel realities depending on the frequency and the consciousness level of the person. And also there's a lot of factors that go into that, pre-life planning, everything else. But he started getting into that, and he was just like tickled to find that there's a little offshoot of humanity that's going to be Homo spiritus. And that offshoot of humanity has a new nervous system that can hold more energy, more information, more light in the body. He calls it, we get an upgrade in our nervous system. This is all recorded and on his life work in his,
this is why I asked the question, because you're describing exactly what is coming into my awareness right now. And I wanted to see, as a reference, when was it that he knew and we weren't paying attention, right?
Well, see, not everybody pays attention, but I pay attention to this stuff. So
now, yes.
No, I've always paid attention.
That wasn't a common thought.
That would not coming up. But really quick, just to close off, David R. Hawkins. It's in his audiobooks. He talks about this in his last couple audiobooks. But we upgrade our nervous systems so we can hold more light, more information, more consciousness. As we hold more light, more information and consciousness, we also become what you would call a new human. We have these abilities, these sixth sense spiritual abilities that he calibrated. Yes, that is going to happen for these people. They're going to have more than one sixth sense, just like I described six senses. And he calls them Homo spiritus. It's a potential of the split off of humanity that goes into this offshoot with Earth. The other thing he says is that about parallel realities, many of these people experience, and they are cognizant and acknowledging that they do experience different versions of reality. And that's where he stopped, because he kept on trying to ask more questions to Source through kinesiology, more questions about parallel realities. And Source stopped him and would not answer his questions because it wasn't for him to experience or learn that. His time is going to be up, and he did his service. So all of a sudden opening up this whole new segment of metaphysics in your last couple years of life was not for him. And so he was like, oh, I'm not going to get any more. We're not going to, what a bar. So he went this whole life.
I got to the bridge and nobody would lift it up. Yeah. What? Really?
Yeah. So anyway,
thank him for his contributions.
He contributed wonderful, but yeah, in his latter years, he was like, oh, I got to the good stuff, and now my life is going to close over. So anyways, I love David R. Hawkins, but he does kind of open into that. And in science, they have scientific research, which I'll put in the show notes for you guys who are scientifically minded. They have done research with light and frequencies, and they have shot light of a salamander to a frog, the vocal DNA of a salamander. They shot it to a frog embryo, and that one only heard the light and the information about the salamander. And then that frog embryo born a salamander.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You see how matter now can be transmuted in
by light.
It's light. Light is prima matra. It's creation material. And you can make anything you want out of it when your powers are restored. Honey, you got junk DNA that allow us to do all that.
Exactly.
Reaching into when we get those powers back, next realm. They're all lit again.
Right. So just for you people who understand this, it's physical science. They've done this in experiments where they shoot different light and that has information, kind of like Wi-Fi has information that sends to the ethers. We don't all necessarily know how Wi-Fi technically happens, but packets of information shot through Wi-Fi signals that did the same kind of thing, but through light, and they send it to the test subjects. And they would do that with ducks and then send it to chicken eggs, and the chickens would be born with duck feet, duck beak, and it's chicken. And it basically proved that the information in light has DNA and information that will physically affect the recipient. So the concept that we know this is a Schumann frequency, when the Earth raises her frequency and continues to raise her frequency up to higher and higher energies, and there's more and more light coming into Earth in these higher energies, it's going to change the cellular structure of everything living on her. Okay, she's getting a makeover.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful way to put it. All of this strange phenomenon that, we appear as though we're ants when earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes come across. We think that they're devastating. To her, those are growing pains. And now that you see that they're coming at the rate that they're coming, if you didn't see the signs that her consciousness is rising, here they are. I can't make them any plainer than that. Pay attention.
Right. So, which is really critical. And in the Bible, they call this the rapture, but they make it really sound like a horror movie. But really, everyone is going to get those frequencies. And because you exist at this time on planet Earth, you're going to be affected by the light that's coming through. Just like a science experiment, no other. Now, just like the science experiment, when they did that, different chickens responded differently. Some were like, oh, okay. Others was like, what's going on? Okay, it's going to be like that here too. You're going to have people who's going to be like, oh, I'm going with it. And then you're going to have others who's going to fight it all the way. So that's Source experiencing different ways of how it reacts to this experiment. So
we still have choice in the end. We are sovereign beings with free will. We're the only planetary experiment that does that, which is why everyone's watching Earth and seeing how this is coming out. Humans are not done with this. We've got another level of evolution that we get to prove ourselves again. But this time, holy cow, we get the technology from what the Lemurians have had, what the Atlanteans had and abused. But, we got wiser. We're smarter. So we're going to prove to the rest of the universe what we can do. And man, do you have any idea with the souls that are going through this transition right now, what value they're going to have in other places? Because there'll be other places in the universe that are going to go through the same scenario. And wow, what your experience is going to be for others, you have no idea.
Right. Well, see, just like when you were a citizen of Telos, a Lemurian, a light being, and then you reincarnated because you got to change the game within the game.
Right. Good for you.
Yeah, the prime directive is real. Source is not going to let you just go in there and change, the game board, because Source wants to see how its creations evolve based off the parameters. So if you want to change the game board, you have to be a player in it. So you got to incarnate in as a human being at this time. So Lowell, welcome to planet Earth. So now that you're here, just like you're welcome, just like you were saying, when you pre-life plan after this excursion of life as a human being, when you reincarnate, if you choose to reincarnate again, this will be part of your soul's blueprint. And then you'll go to other civilizations, and then you'll have this experience as a soul memory. Like, oh, I know exactly how to do this. I don't know why. That's how it goes.
Right.
So we're looking at images of Toth or Toth from Egypt. Okay. Now we talked about this earlier. What is the deal with Toth from Egypt, and how is that related to Atlantis and Lemurian folklores?
Well, you've got to go back to Atlantis and its heyday and understand who Toth was. And the best source for that is find the most contemporary copy you can of the Emerald Tablets. And the introduction will tell you a little bit about who he is. A lot of people have the belief that he came into being in Egypt, and he had a definite effect on Egypt. Believe me, he was here getting training long before that. He was here during Atlantis. He was a priest king back then with godlike powers. He was one of those extra dimensionals that was here to assist humanity in many ways. You'd have to understand who the dweller was. So when Earth was first formed into a planet that was going to sustain life, and it became a potential colony experiment for humanity, Toth, somewhere along the way, his father was, first of all, there's a reference in the Emerald Tablets to the dweller. So let's think of the dweller as when the Galactic Federation decided who was going to be the supreme person in charge of Earth. It's the dweller. Beneath him, he certainly designated 12 priests and priestesses, because there's perfect balance back then, who then occupied each one of the 12 crystal pyramids that set the grid work for the planet. Okay, there's your frame of reference to start. Toth
12 chakras, 12 crystal pyramids. Is there a relation to that?
It absolutely is. And when you finally get the realization that we are electromagnetic beings, so is the Earth. There's no surprise that she's got those 12 crystal pyramids and we have 12 chakras. Yes, let that sink in. So Toth was the son of Totme. he was the high priest for the first crystal pyramid. And so he learned all the things his father had learned, who had learned them directly from the dweller. And so all of the power and experiences that he had at his dimensional level, his father had inherited. Now, Toth, although he must have had some kind of divine connections because he had higher dimensional capabilities and wherewithal, he was ahead of the curve, shall we say. Many apparently were brought before the dweller to be trained. Apparently, not a lot of them survived, but when it came to be Toth's turn, when he was brought before the dweller, he resonated with the differences between dark and light. He understood them. He wanted to know more about it. Mm-hmm. So the dweller continued to teach him everything that he knew. And Toth digested all of that information and became basically cosmic wisdom central. Mm-hmm. He was going to carry that for the rest of his days. He took that and built it, Atlantis, and those abilities and the crystal technology and everything that he gave to humanity. He was referred to as the god of wisdom back then. Okay. And all the things he brought to Atlantis to make it great until, the dark side got a hold of Atlantis, shall we say. And it was about to fall. If you recall in the Emerald Tablets, he was instructed to get in the ship and take the remaining Atlanteans and head to Kem, which is today is what Egypt is. Mm-hmm. And there he was going to begin with a barbarian horde on that end and bring fifth dimensional awareness and abilities to them. So when he took Egypt and built it into what it was long before the pharaohs and, humanity took it over, he turned it into the greatest civilization we ever had. And then he handed the keys over to humanity. Here you go. I'm leaving now. Been here for 16,000 years. I'm going to take a break, but I'm around. I'll be back when I need to be. And so here we are at that day.
Okay. So, so we're going to do a little backtracking. So when you were at that rock and you were meditating in the portal that you found and you saw basically it looked like a black hole. And there was somebody in there going, would you like to see Telos? You said, sure. How did you get to Telos?
Well, we took a tour. We walked down, it was an incline. And as we were making our way down, he was beginning to tell me, well, the first thing he said when I got close enough, he said, well, you can call me Alex. I said, well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name. And he said, yes, we know about your son and, follow me. So here the tour was going to begin. As we were walking down this incline, he started telling me about the formation of the council. There's 13 people on it. 6 are masculine, 6 are feminine. And then Adama is the head priest. The people that sat on the council, in order for there to be a perfect balance, is the reason why there are 6 feminine influences and 6 masculine influences.
Right. Question. So there's 13 people in the council. So some people say that there's 13 chakras. Is there a reason why there's 13 instead of 12?
I have come to understand you in these scenarios. We're always going to be around 12 crystals, 12 emerald tablets. We keep seeing 12 come up. When it's the 13th, you are the 13th person. You are Adama in that council. And you are the person that sees the balance and interprets it accordingly.
Okay. So there's always a balance. So that's why there's 6. And then there's 6. That's a 12. And then you, the person that previewed, you, the navigator, is
You're
the 13th.
Observer.
The observer is the 13th.
Okay. Yes, you look at it and you are going to be accountable someday to report on what you've seen.
Right. And that's why some people say there's actually 13 chakras. So...
Well, there are more. People argue, well, there's 22 chakras. I'm not going to get into that discussion. Right. I'm going to deal with our physicality. So you get that down fat first. Then we can talk about things beyond that realm. And, I don't know that we have the capacity to understand it. And right now where I sit, I don't know why.
Right. No worries. So Alex, which is It looks like a human being. Said, let's go to Telos, or no?
He's got that kind of form, yes. But I can tell you that this guy he's flawless. He does not have a face that had any kind of crinkles. Just they're flawless. And it took me a long time to connect the dots between carbon-based figures and crystalline. I had the notion that that's where we'd be. I'd had to take a lot of time to connect the dots. And wait a minute, that's the form they're already in. That explains why I can't tell if they're hundreds or thousands of years old. You just can't tell.
So what? They always look like they're in the 20s?
Well, whatever form they wish to take, it's pretty much cast. And you're crystalline. But you're not without the ability to manifest anything you wish immediately. Keep that in mind.
Right. So they can shapeshift as needed to whatever they need to be, what age they need to be. But for the most part, they don't really have any imperfections. So Alex looks like a normal person. He just showed up there and he said, let's go to Telos. And so then what did you guys do? Get in one of those like light being spaceships that you took a picture of earlier?
No, there was a platform actually when we got down to the bottom of this incline and you saw that there was light coming from down there. I call it a staging area because I don't know what else to call it. On the opposite side, there were more of these tubes, 5 of them to be exact. But right off to the left, there was a platform that was like 6 by 6. And it looked on top of it like there were 2, I want to call them bucket seats because I don't know what else to call it. No console, nothing other than that. And off to the left, there was another one. And off to my right, there was another one. Well, I was taking that in. Alex had moved around to the other side and then sit on the bucket seat on the other side and invited me to take this one. And as soon as I sat down, this thing levitated and off we went into that middle tube.
Right. I was just showing a picture of the emerald tablet. Is that the emerald tablet that you were talking about? Is that a real emerald tablet, or? Yeah,
from what I understand, it's in a British museum right now.
Okay, and you're saying that is Toth emerald tablet?
Toth was the writer of the emerald tablets. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying Toth wrote this?
Yes, he did. Yes. Long before any wisdom was documented anywhere. These are the first written pieces of any kind of wisdom that's going to be passed along.
Okay. And what was the information in this tablet?
Depends on which one you're looking at.
Okay, so there's a series of them?
The documentation, there's 12. And each one has a different purpose. When you read through them in the emerald tablets, it's a highlight reel. To tell you that the entirety of what he knows is in these 12 tablets, that's not possible.
Okay.
He put enough in here to tease humanity to understand multidimensionality without calling it that.
Okay. Right. See, I use a lot of video game terms. There's a lot of gamers that watch Merkaba Chakras podcast. So I use a lot of video game terms and sci-fi movie terms to kind of relate some of these concepts to people to understand. But when you read it in Buddhism or Hinduism, it sounds like magical fairy tales telling. Okay, because how can you describe this stuff, metaphysics, to ancient times who don't really have any kind of reference point for what a hologram is, what dimensions are, what parallel realities are, shifting from timelines and portals and all these different things. In metaphysics, they don't have any reference point. They've never been exposed to it in literature, in movies, in any kind of communication. So when you read this in old lectures and books, it just sounds like you're talking about a magical fantasy. Yeah. So that's why they always call them the magicians.
Myself, they sound like fantasy to me. But let me tell you, when you're unrestricted by the things that we think is around us and all the things we get to experience here, and when you get to see the magic beyond this that I have seen, now you know what magic is.
Yeah.
We have really no concept.
Yeah. The universe belongs to the magicians that know about light and frequency. So these tablets are in what museum, in case people want to go and see it for themselves?
There's just one that I understand is in one of the British museums. Okay. That's where this was reported to have been found, and that's what I understand.
Okay. So in summary, Toth was a Atlantean, and he taught
Yes.
metaphysics and all that came along with it, from technology to consciousness to all
He
of
taught
that.
alchemy. He taught elementals. So if you resonate with druids, yeah, he was responsible for that feminine high energy to overrule the elements. And man, they could command rain and thunder.
Right.
But he's also, he is the influence behind Merlin. And Merlin is one of those resources we have to take advantage of. He'll show his face to help people understand the magic he carries, because it wasn't just for him, and he gets it.
Right. So he left Atlantis because Atlantis was going the genetic modifications, sinking immorality, all the above everybody talked about. He left that, went to start Egypt, and then started Egypt. And there's a lot of metaphysical remnants of Egypt. And then he left Egypt, and you're saying that he went to the inner earth city of
in
Telos?
the halls of Amenti, where he hangs and he observes what's taking place here and promised that he would return. That was 16,000 years he was there. And
the halls of Amenti is a temple in
the
Egypt.
Great Pyramid. It's beneath the Great Pyramid. Yes.
Okay.
That's where he left everything.
But you say you met him in Telos, which is the inner. No, you didn't. Okay.
No, I did not meet him there.
So how did you meet him? Have you met him at all?
That's a good question. He's been always in the back of my mind. For some reason, I had always been fascinated by him. And it took me 5 passes to understand and read the Emerald Tablets. As you know, it's not a small document. And even if you're willing to listen to it, which I did 3 of the times, you be ready to sit there for 3.5 hours.
Okay.
It was word salad for a long time. And then all of a sudden, I knew what it all meant.
Right. So Lemuria and Atlantis, the survivors are in Telos. So they survived the mega flood. So how many survived the mega flood that ended up living in these inner earth crystal cities?
Well, let's deal with Lemuria first, because that went down, and Atlantis was still they didn't go together. Lemuria was down first. But I want you to point out something about when we envisioned Shasta, we knew was an outpost within Lemurian colonies. That part of the United States and Canada and all that, that was part of Lemuria originally. I say that, and when we look at maps, we want to superimpose where we thought Lemuria was in the middle. The world's land masses were not like that back then. So just be aware that some of the areas that were high and where we expected oceans were back at that time, 300,000 years ago, that was not the way that the Earth was shaped. So just with that in mind, Mount Shasta was still one of the high areas. And we know that really the highest areas of Lemuria were the Hawaiian Islands. That's why they stick up. Those are the peaks of the highest spots of Lemuria in the middle of what that used to be. It was a huge landmass.
Right.
When it finally went down, then it broke off. And who remained? There was preparations, because they knew it was coming, to move what records and crystals they wanted to keep into Mount Shasta. They thought that the elevation was right. They made provisions for 200,000. And in the end, it went so quickly, 25,000 survived. Souls. Now remember, we're still just souls cycling through our evolutions as well. So before anyone gets upset that the rest of them didn't make it, those Lemurian souls are still out there. They're in me. They're in you. Look at how we resonate with all of it. So we may not be part of the tribe there that we don't think about.
Right.
Since I've come to understand, at first I'd heard the numbers that there were 1.2 million of them there, but that was like 5 years ago. What I have been told recently, there's 4.5 million. Not necessarily all in Shasta, in the Telos, but there are 4.5 million Lemurians here on the planet right now.
Oh, like living on the planet or living inside the planet?
Both.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm one of them. So,
I know you are. This is why we have these conversations. Like,
yeah,
you wouldn't talk about Lemuria unless you were triggered by it.
right. Well, so really quick, uh, with my megaliths and pyramids, megaliths, pyramids, and tribal folklores of Asia. It's mostly following the Buddhist folklore of Lemuria, which is in the records of Buddhism. Because a lot of Buddhism and Vedic Hinduism, that metaphysics are carried over from an ancient civilization that we call Mu. That's the folklore. And my project is to go through all of the megaliths and pyramids on top of these island nations in the Pacific, from Australia all the way up to Hawaii, and take pictures and information that I can get from them, because when the flood
You know what it
happens, what
sounds
is
like
left?
you are to me?
What is
Here's
left
my
over?
view.
Okay.
This is what it sounds like your job is right now. You are a cosmic historic Lemurian cartographer.
Oh,
And
there
your
you go.
job is to kind of recreate what that looked like for the rest of us, because it won't be long in Earth's new incarnation. Many of these places are going to come back. We haven't even touched on that spot I was telling you where Nellie's property was. Honey, there's a Lemurian temple there.
Oh yeah,
You just can't see it.
that would be fun. That'd be fun. But yeah, so according to the Buddhist folklore, everything got flooded, and what remained were the tippy tops of the mountains, and on top of these mountains, many of them have pyramids and megaliths. And that's why if you go over every single island, for the most part in the Pacific, they all have at the very top a pyramid or a megalith, 100%, because they were remnants of the whole civilization of Lemuria, which was large. And so my thing about going to them is, again, just taking pictures and all of that, so that when people want to do ecotourism, to have these experiences at different portal points on the earth, they know they kind of have a guide, like a map, a guide of what to avoid. Well, I'm here. So where are all the portal points in Hawaii, in Fiji, in
That's wonderful service.
Whatever. Yeah, and then they can
picked
go.
Your lane. Awesome.
Yeah, that's my lane, and that's a fun one. But anyways, and that's why that was one of my fears about continuing. That is, like, if I go to one and then I zoom into one of your experiences, am I going to come back in this time frame? Because I still want to see my kids grow up, and I still want to live my life.
Of that.
So
no, we need to dissolve that right away, because to me, that's one of your divine assignments. And we don't want you to be afraid to go out and do it. No, we're excited to see the results you get, because you're the person that's going to do that. Yeah. You're not going to teach others. That's all on you, honey.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be fun, and we'll bring the podcast and say, oh, let's take a look. So, anyways, there's a lot more to come, but I do love interviewing everybody else's little piece as well. So let's go look at these portals. Oh, and just really quick, Toth, he's always depicted with a bird head. Was he a bird man, or is that a mask that he puts on?
That is a representation of an ibis. It's like that bird is eternal wisdom. And when I see these, when I found those illustrations of Toth, it just brought it real. Look, those things were carved into rock. They all look the same. And there were lots of them. So this guy, he wasn't any less real than Saint Germain was. We know that now. And so when I see those things that were carved into Egypt, I just got to go see it for myself. But when you look really deeply into the symbolic, way that he's trying to communicate with us, it's magnificent. That one that you pointed to was one of my favorites, because it looks like he and I think that's Horus on the other side, are pouring ankhs into an empty vessel. Yes, you know what ankhs are? They're representations of life. So they're pouring life into that form until it takes form. That's his job. Isn't that magnificent?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and for the audio listeners, it is an image that you see in the Egyptian pyramids of Toth. Okay, so we're going to move on. So we've established you're going into Telos. Okay, so you went into Telos from this light being named Alex that looks like a human being that has no blemishes or any sunspots or anything. It looks, perfect. So when you go in, describe what did you see? Was this something that was like a dream state that you were in deep meditation having this experience, or was it a physical
it
thing
was
that you
very
did?
physical. Yes, this is boots on the ground physical. I think if you flip to, there's another image of Telos that you've got here. Well, that's what the council chamber looks like. Go in the other direction, because there was another image past that was representative of inner Earth.
This one?
Keep going. Where the images of like inner Earth and Telos, where you had them a moment ago.
Oh,
that's one. There and there. That, if you could see yourself, this was a cityscape I was seeing, and this was as close as I could get. The white pyramid in the center of Telos, which is circular in orientation, isn't quite this large, but this is damn close. So what I got to see in this craft that was, we're hovering, we went up and saw a cityscape from that perspective. So you see this crystal city in, this circular orientation built around this white pyramid in the middle that has a capstone. Capstone was given to them by Venus, and later I'll understand the day I saw it, it was white. That's how I described it. Mm-hmm. Later, I'll meet Diane Robbins, who's written, 3 or 4 books on Telos, has been doing this for 40 years, and she had some information the rest of us did not. Well, that capstone changes colors depending on the day of the week. I happened to be there on Sunday. That's why it was white. Had it been Wednesday, it would have been green. Had it been Saturday, it would have been purple.
What changes the color?
I don't know, because I didn't see it in any other manner. That was reported to me from her.
Okay. So in the pictures in your
That's
website,
a better representation right there.
40kfootview.com, and it's in the show notes. So this is what they call the crystal cities. The whole city is made of crystals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And why is it all made of crystals?
That's just the most malleable material that they have.
Okay.
You can form it into anything. And remember, they can manifest anything into form, whatever they wish. So crystals do that, hold energy, hold codes, and you can form it into anything that you want. No one gives you an apartment here. Here's some space, and you build out your crystal cavern in whatever way that you wish.
Okay. So really quick, so the ship that you traveled through a portal into inner Earth to look at Telos with Alex, was it like a metal ship? Was it?
No.
I mean, can you describe it?
I want to call it crystal, but it wasn't like any crystal I know. It certainly wasn't wood, and it wasn't metal. I can't tell you what the material was. It's probably something we don't recognize in this realm. But man, it's had the ability to circumvent gravity.
Right. So what I find very interesting with the inner Earth city of Telos, these advanced Lemurians and Atlanteans no, just Lemurians.
No. Yes.
No Atlanteans made it?
No. What Atlanteans survived when Atlantis sunk, they created colonies where they would be anywhere from the northern parts of Europe and down through Europe, but they occupied a lot of space in South America and got all the way to Peru. The Atlanteans kind of spun off from the Atlantic Ocean. But, when they went down and had to start over, there were 12 new colonies that were created. Atlantis wasn't a city. And it wasn't an island. It was 12 colonies that were spread out over, again, a landmass that was much different than we know it now.
Right, right. So, but many of them perish in the mega flood.
Well, their souls did, yes. Again, to recycle, either I'm going to come back and learn these lessons in this environment again, or I'm tired of this, I'm going to ascend. We need to really focus on and look at the horizon from our soul's perspective. Not this biosuit that we're riding. This is just, this is a jacked up vehicle for my soul to ride around in when I'm here in this density. Don't mistake that for who you are.
Right.
You'll limit yourself by what you think you can do by what this thing is designed for.
Right. So let me ask you this. So Telos is, you're saying, one of the many inner earth crystal cities or cities that were created from refugees of Lemuria after the mega flood. Were there any physical cities that were created from refugees of Atlantis after the mega flood? Do you know of?
No, because I think that they stayed in these colonies on the surface. They didn't go underground. But there were Lemurians, I should say this, that found their way to Tibet. There were lots of those higher elevation things where they took and stored code in crystals. You got to wonder where all that Himalayan, kind of Buddhist knowledge came from.
Right.
It came as seeds from the Lemurians and their seventh dimensional awareness.
Right. All of the folklores of Buddhism in and around Southeast Asia and Tibet will say that it's in Mount Kailash in Shambhala.
Yes.
Which only people who are fifth dimensional consciousness and aura field will be able to access. And if not, you're just going to walk through and never be able to see it.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, there's good news and bad news in that statement. The good news is we can all get there, all of us. But you got to figure out how to get your vibration there. That's the bad news. And most people don't know what the hell we're talking about when we say that.
Watch Merkaba Chakras. There's plenty of energy healing episodes
there you go.
And to talk about consciousness raising. So let's look a little bit more into these pictures. And this round table meeting area, what is that you saw?
That's the council chamber. That's what I saw the last day. I went there and met with, there were 6 of them. There were 4 female council members that were there, Adama and Alex. So they flanked me during this last session we had together where I was going to find out what I was doing there and why me. Right.
So let's go to this one. We're almost done with the visual tour of the images that you recall experiencing. So this is the hydroponic gardens.
Yes.
Okay. It looks very futuristic.
I got to tell you that when I saw this program, and again, this is an AI illustration program. It works by putting in keywords, and then you see what it comes up with. You can use the same keywords and never come up with the same image twice, which is magnificent about this. But when I did, I had thought for a long time, how in the world do you describe hydroponic gardens like I've seen with crystal influences and no real dirt anywhere? How is that? When I started to just piddle around and produce these, oh my God, these were pretty dang close to that.
Yeah, that AI does a pretty good rendition of recreating these images.
But they know what this looked like. It was amazingly accurate.
All right, so let's take a look at the light portals within Earth. What we're looking at in the pictures is light portals within Earth.
Yes.
So when you were hiking with people, you guys are finding portals within nature, and when you find portals within nature, you're sitting there communing with it, meditating, doing what you guys do. But you're saying there's also light portals within Earth, or so are these the portals on the other side of those nature portals that people are sitting on?
That's what I see. Yes, that's exactly.
Okay. And so that's why when you're using a dowsing rod or you're following signs of this is a portal area, a small portal or a big portal area where it's in a desert, all of a sudden you have like a fairy ring of growth.
Yes.
That's the remnants of the
That's
energy
the
coming from the earth.
representation of this kind of thing you can't see underneath. Now, again, this is a dimensional realm. So yeah, I want to point out, look at how magnificent this is and see what you're missing out on when you don't vibrate at this level. Look at the codes, look at the light, look at the key codes that are buried in here. There's information in here at each one of these destinations. And when you start to read where they are, oh my God, yes, this makes sense. This one's the gateway to Middle Earth. There is a portal to Sirius. There's one to the Pleiades. There's one under the city of Telos. Oh my God, there's one under Stonehenge. And when you see these things, look at how beautiful they are.
Mm-hmm. So, do you go into the portal? Like, do you astral travel into a portal, or do you go into the portal physically in the ship?
You've seen the movie The Stargate, right?
Right.
You understand passing through that? This is a similar concept. But this is what you see on the other end of the destination. It's just beautiful.
Okay, so let's say you go through a Stargate or some kind of portal point, wormhole, whatever technology, and there's one under Stonehenge, and you get to the destination. It's going to look like this when you go to the other side of the portal.
That's my representation. That's right.
Okay, and this is what you say you experience as well.
Yes.
Okay, so you saw.
That
Did you go to each one of them?
Really resonated with me because
the Mayan realm.
Where did the Mayans come in? Here's where they came in. When the Atlantean realm was gone, who was left to pick up the pieces? Yeah, they were. Those 12 pieces of the emerald tablets that were given to 12 priests and sent on their way. You know how many of those made it to the Mayan colonies? Yeah, a lot of them. So first of all, that tablet was then converted and duplicated into one of the 12 crystal skulls. Each one of them holds an emerald tablet. And a lot of that happened right there in the Mayan realm. That's why these artifacts that look so Atlantean, codes that look so Atlantean, here is what was left. But the Mayans were a separate, not as sophisticated civilization. They had been given the same gifts Toth gave everybody else too, but they still understood and abided by the emerald tablets, where Atlantis did not go that way.
Right. Oh, we could say that America is, and the world could be going the path of Atlantis. So
regretfully, I have to say that. And the conversations that Toth and I have had, he's hugely disappointed. Because when he left and he turned the reins over to humanity, Egypt was flourishing as the greatest civilization ever.
Well, we do it. The challenge for humanity is to balance our ego.
Yes, honey.
And our third dimensional greed and wanting to find love and acknowledgement externally. Yes. So all the stuff that Buddhists say you got to work on.
They're right. They got it.
Yeah. So anyways, but for those who are ready and are having those higher frequencies, and they go to these portal points, they could be experiencing these portals. Now you say when you go to these portal points, this is underneath the portal points.
Yes.
You say that they're also gateways to different dimensions, galaxies. You said the Pleiades.
Some of these, yes, there are 2, maybe 3 that are Stargates directly to Sirius. One's directly to Sirius, and one's to the Pleiades. Yes.
And how would you do that? Like how do you go underneath the ground to the
well, see,
portal?
Now you're trying to think that as a human being in this body and how I got to get there physically. You don't think in those terms when you're light-bodied.
Okay. You just
move,
focus and you go.
Right. Bilocation will be an interesting concept for you to embrace.
Oh, good. I love biolocation. That's one of the concepts in Buddhism for advanced souls, or what they would call
Yeah.
ascended master teachers, what the West calls ascended masters, they're just teachers that's mastered this experience. And the concept of biolocation is much like lucid dreaming. You just focus on what you want, and then you just take your whole presence and your whole beingness, and you just focus, and then you're there. Kind of like teleporting from one version of reality to another version of reality, one location of reality to another location of reality.
That's
So
right.
that is one of the sixth senses that according to Buddhism, every being has the ability to do when you get to that frequency.
Exactly. We carry that code.
All right. And then the last one, there was, okay, with this concept of portals. Okay, this is the last of the gallery.
Yeah. Now remember the last gallery, those were pretty much earthbound. These are Stargate guardians elsewhere. And you're going to see forms here that don't necessarily look like beings the way that we would see them, but there are life forms that are going to be foreign to us, but nonetheless, they're still intelligence and they still hold consciousness. And, they're all benevolent. So when you see some of these Stargates, and that's why I kept spawning them, because you would see different entities in them. They didn't all look like a guy that was standing in front of a gateway.
Right. So these are the guardians of the galaxy. So
these are Stargate, specific Stargate guardians. Now, I tell you where they were, but you have to find them on your own.
Okay, to find the nature, the portal points in nature. So you find the portal points in nature. Below them is the portals for in Earth. So people can go to the portals in Earth, and they can go from one location on Earth to another portal point on Earth to another portal point. Is that kind of how it works? Kind of like an airport?
Yes. Within that that would be accurate for the gallery we saw. If we could go to those spots and connect to this gallery, which are all over the galaxy, not limited to Terra Earth.
Okay. So you're saying there's also portal points on Earth that are galactic in nature. So there's portals that go from location A to B to Z on Earth, from different portal points, and there are portals on Earth that go from planet Earth to the Pleiades to whatever universe, wherever
you don't even know about yet.
You don't even know.
Available to you. Yes.
Okay, so let me, and then when you go to the other side, you're saying there is a being that's guarding there?
A guardian, yes.
You're greeted by guardian.
He's kind of an ambassador.
Okay.
Think of him as a wayshower when you get there. You might not know where you're going when you get there. That's his job.
Okay. Yeah, there's some alien-looking beings here. So we have to get over fears of aliens. This one looks like a reptile.
Precisely. They're going to come in forms that we don't recognize. But I underscore again, these are all benevolent beings that are just here to assist.
This one looks avian. Right. The avian folklore in Laos and Thailand, we have of the avian people. That's a lot in the art history. The art history. So, and there's lots of kinds here. Lots of kinds of beings.
No two are the same.
Here's the blue people again. I wonder what galaxy that one goes to.
I'd tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
But aren't we all dead anyways? This is just an experience on consciousness.
Yes.
This is fun to go into. I love these pictures. So have you gone through any of these Stargate portals to different galaxies or planets?
All of them.
You have, and what is the experience like?
They're all aghast. They're all different, and I will tell you this: there's a sense of humor on the other end of some of these. Yeah, there are a couple of these Stargate guardians that love to pull practical jokes.
What did
And
they
so
do to you?
I'm not going to tell you that because I love to watch.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're on the inside
I get to
joke
witness
now?
things, and it's a blast seeing the newbies come through, and they just have a way. They're
Okay, so what newbies do you see? Now, let me ask you this. So going into Telos, you say that you were in that spaceship with Alex, your tour guide, and you physically went into that portal into Telos, saw all that wonderful crystal city there and the people there. And then you're saying in the same spaceship with him, you just portaled to a different portal point that goes to these different galaxies. Same thing?
No, we did not go to different galaxies. We spent our time only in Telos. And all I saw, there are 5 levels of Telos. And it's said that if you took into consideration the entirety of that location that's designated as Telos, it's 25 square miles. There's 5 levels. I was going to see the 3rd level that day, which is where the hydroponic gardens were. And then I would wander throughout the 1st level and spend time in the council chamber, which was one of the temples that were there on that level.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is great. So, and how did you experience these portals if you didn't go through these portals, these Stargate portals? By location.
Yes.
Okay. With Alex or by yourself?
This has been since the whole Alex thing.
Okay.
Like
is it through meditation? Okay.
Started there. But, as I've been going through and had more solicited information coming to me, we want to talk about things that don't sound like fantasy, but I can't help saying the things that's been presented to me. One of the last sessions I had with Yaya, who has a way with connecting to higher beings and letting them speak through. It was really the ceremony where I'm going to embrace this idea that Toth wants to embody here. Okay. I'm going to resign myself to it. Well, during that episode, Cindy got to a point, because only in my mind, Toth he's going to start to drive this ship. Whatever that means, he's going to come and he's going to speak through me. At one point, after she's speaking, like language that I still need to understand, she stops and says, Toth is not the only aspect you will be carrying. Well, when she said that, I had this vision of some energy that I was taking on anyway. And the table had been set on what I was seeing around me. There were some of my friends who were experts that were working on my body to prepare for this upgrade. And then they said it was like they moved aside and there was another energy that was coming forward. And Cindy said, well, they just told me to ground. They never told me to do that. So it must be something really big coming through. And that's when Toth moved in. I envisioned it almost like if you can see the vision of like a Thunderbird, a 2-seater Thunderbird. Here's the passenger, the driver's seat, the passenger seat. Toth slid into the driver's seat, but left room in the passenger seat for something else. And when Cindy said, you're going to hold space for other aspects to come through, that's when that's what that means. Yeah, Toth is driving this ship as a permanent resident, but he makes space for other entities to come through and be expressed. Now, I haven't come to express who they are yet, but I've had experiences with 3 of them already.
Okay, so are you like channeling them through?
They come through and they give me messages, and some of them give me comfort.
Okay.
Merlin was an easy one. I got that. Namamia is a guardian angel of mine. Toth now is stepped in and he's taken residence, but George Harrison is also one of those. He comes by and gives me comfort.
Right.
In his music, I just love the guy. You got to resonate with him if you understand his spiritual journey. Yeah, we had lots of parallels. And so he's come and just played his music when he was supposed to, given me some words of advice, and then he went on his way. But he's awesome.
Right. Yeah. So like in Buddhism, they say that when you want to learn from a teacher who's anywhere in the cosmos, anywhere in existence, that means all of existence, you just focus on the energy of that being, and then they literally embody you, and you are them and they are you at the same time. And they call it channeling. Some people call it mediumship, whatever you want to name it. But then you, like if you want to learn kung fu, for example, you focus on Bodhidharma, who is introduced kung fu to the Shaolin monks. And then his essence comes in and he shows you the moves that you're interested in. And then when he's done, you know the moves, the essence leaves.
Right.
It's still you. It's still you. Your consciousness just said, I'm gonna bench myself and allow this other being to use my body as a tool for the exercise, and then I'm coming back in. And you always come back in because you're always in control of your body. And that's how you learn from the masters that no longer exist.
When I say that there are things I get out of each one of these exchanges, you just gave me my dose. And I had heard that concept before. And in trying to understand what it really means by somebody's going to embody themselves, I mean, what the hell does that mean?
It's not possession, because you invite them in for the exercise.
You're a vessel.
You're a vessel.
Just want to move you out of the way. You're right. And they're going to express themselves in a way that doesn't come from me. When you see some of the things I've been writing recently, this is not Lowell writing any of this, because those thoughts would not flow out of him using those words.
Right. Right. So that's what it's like to, invite in. And but again, make the intention pure. I'm doing this out of love. I am curious and interested, and I would like you to leave after the experience with love and gratitude. Okay, positive stuff. Okay, and then close off your essence and aura field. Close it off, lock it up. It's still yours. So you always are in control of your physical incarnation, because this is a free will existence. So anyways,
reminder. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. So I think I pretty much went through all the gallery, which was fascinating. And people have an idea of how they're going to experience these biolocate through their consciousness, these different portals in the cosmos. And then when you go to the other side, do you experience the civilization or the culture of that galaxy?
You feel the vibration there is what you pay attention to, really. And every place I've been, Telos, that experience, when you got a chance to step back and assess that, really you assimilated it, it felt like I was in a place that was home. And the people with eye contact I could make, I knew them and they knew me.
Okay. 2 more questions, and this is a long one, but it's gone by so fast, and I just love that. I love the grace and the time that you give into these conversations. So, Lowell, please explain how holding a 5th dimensional frequency is a requirement to be able to connect to these nature portals and possibly meet with spiritual guides of Telos, Agartha, maybe even Shamballa, and maybe some of these other Stargate portals in Earth and to other realms as well. Like, why is a 5th dimensional frequency so important? I just want to reiterate this again.
Okay, there's 2 words in here that are key that you really need to start to embrace. And there's a distinction between vibration and frequency. Frequency is really, it's a measurement. You made mention earlier to the Schumann resonance, and that's a good place to talk about this measurement. It's said, well, for those of you that are familiar with it, we'll just do a quick little review, that the Earth's natural vibration is 7.83 hertz. And that's the way we measured it, which would mean that all the sentient life on her would have to vibrate at the same level. So we do, everything else does. But if you've been paying attention to that, really the harmonic resonance around here has really averaged more like 11 to 14 steadily as an average. That does not speak to the spikes that we get a lot that are 60, 70,
Right.
sometimes 90s. They
Right.
say that once she hits and sustains 40 megahertz, we are holding fourth dimensional vibration. There's no
Mhm.
going back then. Here we are. So
Right.
anything, any frequency vibrating less than that, you're gone, right? You can't exist in this in the environment because your vibration doesn't match. So
Right.
frequency and vibration is what's important. You have the ability with the tools we've got when you get in touch with that and figure out here's my base frequency. I want to raise that vibration. And once it matches things in higher realms where all that magic lies, you experience them.
Right. I want you to, and I know you talk about this in Starbucks Mystery School podcasts, courses, and blogs, and the book that you have as well. You talk about all this stuff to help get people to the fifth dimensional frequency, and hold that frequency in their essence so that they can be open to these experiences. But one of the fears that people have about attaining fifth dimensional frequency and holding it is not that it's good for them and they like it and it opens up doorways into the multiverse, but that they're fearful that their loved ones aren't going to be there in that frequency as well. Can you address that fear of, if I go up there, am I going to lose everybody I love who's not going to be fifth dimensional as well?
I just wrote a blog on this last week because I was told to. It was one of the first things Toth told me to write about, and it was dealing with the concept of death. If we really just focus on that, then we've neglected these reincarnations that we've experienced. And our souls, we are much more than this. We've just been conditioned a lot to think that when we're done here, we're done here. And that's all there is. That is not true. We don't lose anybody. That angelic realm that we return to for the next lessons, our next soul contract, everybody we've ever loved with a foundation of love, because we're in the law of one is the fourth dimension. We all understand we're connected to one another. There's no separation there. The only separation we think of is on this side of the veil because we don't know that. We all go back to that. Whether we think we do, you can claim that you're an agnostic or you don't believe in God or whatever it is. But I can promise you this is physics we're talking about. Your soul is going to return to that next realm where everyone that you've ever loved and known is there waiting still. You didn't lose anybody when, a person died in the way that we see it here. You've lost nothing. They've recycled through the system again. You will definitely see them again. It's a little saddening, though, to think that people grieve for things that they really haven't lost.
Right. And here's another way to think about that as well and address this issue. Like I know this from my personal experience, that as you raise frequency and you get to higher dimensions of frequency, just like you were saying earlier, that we literally biolocate from our consciousness from point A to point B in reality or existence. That when you're traveling to these different portal points from portal point to portal point, you just focus and you're there and it just appears. It's just like walking through from here to here. When you raise your frequency and you hold that higher frequency, you go to the next level of existence. And that next level of existence will have the next level version of your loved ones as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for you people out
are mortal. They go nowhere. So all those people that were sitting in those biosuits while we were here, those people are immortal. That soul's immortal. They're going to have a different form when you see them next. It could be another dimensional form. Could be. You could play this out again. But the soul is still there. And among those, there was a tight bunch when you snapped off and maybe even snapped off. It's said that your twin flame and you snapped off at source to go enjoy the things. You're going to go learn that. I'm going to learn this. We're going to come back and watch what we are when we're a powerhouse when we get back.
Right. There's a lot of different answers for that, you guys. And I know for myself, like I have popped in from one version of reality to another. And my mother has brown eyes, and then another version she has blue eyes, and then a pop back she has brown eyes, and then or my sister who is a little bit of basket case, I'll pop into another version of reality, a higher version of reality. Usually when I'm doing these metaphysical stuff, or I'm in a energy space, but all of a sudden she's got it together. It's like a whole different person. It's the same person. I still love her, but instead of the basket case, she's got it together, and she's got all the wisdom.
When you're aware and paying attention, if everyone would stop to see that, and it's not that you're examining somebody else's life. It's that now you're beginning to appreciate all the nuances that the universe is trying to show you. Right. And they did it because you asked for it. This is a little piece of putting all of that together so that you get to the place you want to be.
Right. Right. So in short, with that fear of, okay, if I raise my frequency, am I going to lose my loved ones to the third dimension? And then are they going to come there with me? Unless they die and they exit out that way, which they're still going to be there with you. They're just in a different dimension. Right. They're also going to raise their frequency almost out of osmosis, because you're going to get the version of reality and the people in that reality and the planet in that reality that matches your frequency. It's all frequency. So if they exist, they're at that level with you. But if you're aware enough, you'll notice there are some slight differences when you raise your frequency, because the people around you have also elevated their consciousness.
Right. Remember, they're all on their own journeys. Yeah, all of them are on their own journeys, and they have their own lessons they've signed up for. That's why it's really not up to me to judge anybody else's life, because first of all, got my hands full with this one right here. However, we need to allow them on whatever lessons they're learning. Because again, they're doing it on our behalf in the end too. Let that play itself out, good, bad, or indifferent. At least in the end, we got contrast and we know what the result is. Now,
exactly.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one of the 5 characteristics of a fifth dimensional being is to have compassion for those suffering their hard knocks for their spiritual evolution. So with that, do you have a last message for the builders of the fifth dimension? I know we've gone really long on this one.
All I can just tell you is I refer back to vibration. Understand what that really means, and then do what you can to, feed it. Make yourself happy in whatever way, and your vibration just rises. Keep it there and watch what wonderful things you drop. And sooner or later, you're going to step into a whole nother dimension you didn't know you had access to, and wait till you see that.
Yeah. And there's plenty of us who will help you adjust. So they were out there, and the universe will present them as you go through your experiences. They always attract what you need. So Mr. Lowell Johnson, thank you for sharing your inner earth Telos experience and introducing 5D Lemurian tours via nature portals. So you are right. The universe belongs to the magicians of energy, frequency, and vibration. So for more information about Lowell Johnson's offerings, please visit the website 40kfeetview.com. And thank you kindly to our audience for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings. Mwah!
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.